Welcome to Fantasy Audiobook, Lord of All. I have a troop editor. Chapter 61. The hundreds of meters long giant sword shadow collided with the huge bloody dragon shadow, causing a violent explosion and shock waves throughout the battlefield. The rebel soldiers who formed the military formation were protected by the power of the military formation and remained motionless under the shock wave, but the princess and her guards were knocked down by the impact. The Dragon Blood warriors transformed in time and used their bodies to help them block most of the aftermath damage, otherwise it would not be as simple as falling. Master Hegniv has blocked the military formation. Let's hurry up and leave here. As long as we escape successfully, no one can leave you here. A Dragon Blood warrior reminded Mosana while helping her up. The captain of the guard raised her head and glanced at the majestic figure in the sky, and understood this, so she nodded vigorously, turned around, pulled the princess, and continued to escape into the distance with the Dragon Blood warriors. However, the biggest threat was held back by the military formation. The two dragon knights hovering in the air finally found an opportunity and chased them again. The situation became dangerous again. Amidst the ferocious dragon roars, the two giant dragons flew closer and closer, and the knight on the back even raised the dragon gun in his hand. The legendary dragon demon fighting spirit flickered in the Gunblade Mountain with a dazzling edge. When the dragons swooped into the sky above their heads, their attacks were launched instantly. A dozen dragon gun beams shot down in the air, covering and bombarding the enemies on the ground. Every blow is full force, and the power is not inferior to that of airborne missiles. With such a covering strike, it is really not possible to catch anyone alive. In fact, this is also true. As long as they can kill the remnants of the royal family, their mission is also completed. However, they obviously underestimated the group of warriors around the princess. When they launched an attack, these warriors also roared angrily and also mobilized all their strength to fight back brazenly. "It's just a giant dragon, open it for me." The dragon-blooded warriors all slashed with blood energy, forming an airtight net of slashes, facing each other tit for tat with the flying spears of the two dragon knights. After hearing a series of explosions and roars, the Dragon Knights were surprised to find that these people were not damaged at all. What are the backgrounds of these guys? Not only are their strength as high as the 8th level, but together they can actually block the joint attack of two Dragon Knights. And in their bloody chop, they actually felt a bit of the energy aura unique to the dragon. Weird, so weird, I have never heard of such a type of soldier, I have no idea where they came from, they are just as evil as that ridiculously powerful sanctuary powerhouse. The two dragon knights looked at each other in the air, and the murderous intent in their eyes became more and more vigorous. No matter where they come from, we must kill them today. The two giant dragons circled crosswise in the air, preparing to swoop down again and deliver another fatal blow to the target. After all, they are just a group of 8th level warriors. If they can block it once, how can they block it 2 or 3 times? However, just as they were preparing to attack again, a strange dragon roar suddenly sounded in the distant sky. When he looked up, he saw that it was a fire dragon with its whole body burning with flames, piercing the sky like a meteorite and roaring towards the battlefield. Not only that, but there were 2 afterimages, one black and one red, that shot in front of them in the blink of an eye like sharp arrows. The 2 rebel dragon knights who had just launched their second dive were intercepted by these 2 afterimages before they could stab their spears. Only then did they reveal their figures. A mighty warrior with 2 wings on his back and dragon horns on his head, like a half-dragon. A mysterious swordsman whose whole body is made up of lava, with flames flashing on his body, exuding a fiery and warm light. The 2 dragon knights swooped down with 10,000 tons of force, but they were actually knocked away and deflected by their seemingly small bodies. Legendary strong man. The 2 dragon knights controlled the dragon's figure, looked up at the sudden appearance of the disruptor, and gritted their teeth with hatred. After being delayed for a while, the dragon knight riding the flame dragon also rushed to the scene. With the momentum of the impact, he directly knocked one of the brass dragon knights away, biting and grabbing him in the air, and his offensive was extremely violent. The 2 legendary warriors who came to the rescue were not polite and joined forces to attack the other copper dragon knight. The strength of these 2 people seems to be extremely strong. The dragon warrior alone can defeat a dragon knight and be unable to fight back. The red flame slashes from the swordsman with the flaming body were also extremely sharp. Every time he slashed through the air, even the layer of dragon scales and dragon skin on the dragon's body, which had top-notch physical and demon resistance, could not defend itself and was cut out. There were flame sword marks that were deep into the bones, making the giant dragon scream in pain. Soon, as the flame swordsman cut off one of the giant dragon's wings with his sword, the dragon warrior seized the flaw, split half of the dragon knight's body with his big sword, and then stabbed the copper dragon's head with a precise shot. Smash them to the ground until they die. In the blink of an eye, the victory or defeat was decided. The last brass dragon knight of the rebels was unable to escape due to the joint efforts of the 3 legendary combat forces, and finally followed in the footsteps of his colleagues with miserable wails. By the time the battle was over, the princess and her party had not yet reacted to the continuously changing situation. They only knew that they were probably safe, right? Just when they were confused, the ground began to tremble, and the source of the earthquake was getting closer and closer. They turned around in surprise and saw countless figures on horseback appearing on the hillside not far away, bathing in the sunshine and running towards them. Just listen to the leader, a handsome black-haired general, raise his sword high and shout loudly. "Soldiers! The rebels are at the front, kill them!" Countless voices immediately responded to his announcement, and they formed a single word like a tsunami. Kill, kill, kill. Isariel, who was still a little confused, stared at the general bathed in the sun and the mountains, and suddenly realized that she might never forget the scene in front of her for the rest of her life. John Howe listens. Exist. Formulate the army. Yes. After a brief handover of orders, Wu Wei had delegated the authority to use the Night Guard's exclusive military formation to his 3rd sanctuary-level hero, John Howe, the first leader of the Night Watch Legion. I saw him leading the charge and shouting loudly, "All Night Watchmen, charge with me. Promise." All the Night Watchmen agreed in unison, drove their horses to speed up, separated from the Legion, and gathered into a 10,000 charge group. In order to speed up the march, Wu Wei equipped the entire army with war horses. In his team, even the spearmen were mounted on horses, as were the more than 10,000 Night Watch soldiers. Moreover, other non-night types of troops ride horses just for the convenience of traveling, and their combat effectiveness will be greatly reduced on horses. However, the Night Watch has good horsemanship, good at riding and shooting, in the setting, so its combat effectiveness will not be affected by riding a horse, and it can even be used as a cavalry. This also means that like the knights, they can use the power of the military formation in a mounted charge without having to dismount. At this moment, under the leadership of John Howe, the Xian sword master at the pinnacle of the Holy Domain, more than 10,000 night guards and furnace knights gathered together on their horses and rushed towards the battlefield. When he rushed to the area where the princess was, John Howe gave another loud order. Baharo, the apostle of Xian, and Banner, the knight of Yanye Dragon, returned to their positions quickly. The 2 legendary strong men of the Night Watch also loudly agreed and quickly arrived in the sky above the Night Watch Legion. With their joining, the prerequisites for the exclusive military formation were immediately met. The military formation is activated. Fiery and mighty power burst out from John Howe's body, spreading backwards with the strong wind, covering all the Night Watchmen in the blink of an eye. This power unites the chi of each Night Watchman to form a whole, and at the same time, it is improved hundreds or thousands of times. As the Legion charged, a ball of red energy starlight separated from each Night Watchman and converged into the sky. The Furnace Knight even raised the lantern in his hand, continuously releasing red starlight into the sky. Tens of thousands of crimson stars gathered together and suddenly formed another sun in the sky. In other words, a majestic morning star seemed to light up on the ground, and its light was more dazzling than the sun in the sky. The Night Watch's exclusive military formation Yi Xingluo. Under the new sun, the long night guards kept an orderly pace and ran all the way, and soon charged in front of the rebels' mixed army formation. I saw John Howe raising one arm high, showing a lifting force, and at the same time let out an angry shout. Yi Xingluo Type 1 Long Night Star Fall. The soldiers in the military formation received the order and also raised their palms high, and then together with their leaders, they waved forward with all their strength. The red sun in the sky immediately separated a huge lava meteorite, dragging the tail flame and smashing towards the rebel army formation. At this time, Hegnev was fighting another phantom of the giant steel sword summoned by the opponent's military formation. When he turned around, he saw the flaming meteorite passing by and hitting the rebels' military formation hard. Exploded. The rebels' military formation had just gathered its strength to fight against Hegnev. At this time, it was too late to gather the power of the military formation again, and they could only rely on the power of the military formation for passive defense. A metallic energy curtain opened in time, wrapping and protecting the rebel formation. As soon as the protection was formed, the red meteorite hit it with a terrifying force, triggering a violent explosion over a large area and sending out circles of flames. In such a violent explosion, the protective layer of the mixed army formation suddenly burst. The soldiers in the rebel army formation felt their heads buzzing loudly, and some even spit out a mouthful of old blood, obviously suffering from internal injuries. This is a situation that occurs when the attack exceeds the overall defense limit of the military formation. Otherwise, if it is defended, it will only consume the energy of the military formation and will not harm the soldiers who form the military formation. This blow also shocked the general in charge of the rebel military formation. He exclaimed in disbelief, "How is it possible? It is obviously only a military formation of about 10,000 people, how can it have such terrifying power? You know, this steel forest formation is a strong point in terms of defense. It is said to be as defensive as a steel fortress. It is difficult for ordinary military formations of the same size to break through its protection. But the size of the military formation in front of them was just over 10,000, and it actually broke this proud steel barrier with one blow, and caused overflow damage." This was beyond his imagination. Obviously, even the previous Feng Zealand army formation composed of all wind-shaping swordsmen of level 6 or above couldn't do anything to them. How did these guys do it? In fact, what he thought was correct, but what he didn't know was that among the soldiers who formed Yanye Xingluo's army formation, there were also two legendary powerhouses and a heroic commander at the pinnacle of the Holy Domain. Hegnev could compete head-on with their military formation and was at a disadvantage. John Hal was also at the pinnacle of the Holy Realm, and his strength was not as strong as Hegnev but was limited. Besides, the exclusive military formations of unified arms are much more powerful than the mixed military formations. In a normal confrontation, 1 versus 3 or 1 versus 5 is no problem. Therefore, the current power of Yanya's military formation is the combination of the power of the exclusive military formation at the sanctuary level and the peak strength of John Hal's sanctuary. Naturally, it far exceeds the rebel military formation, even if their size is enough several times the size of Yanya's military formation was completely unable to make up for this huge gap. In fact, even John Hal was a little surprised. In his expectation, this blow was enough to defeat the opposing military formation. It seemed that the opponent's military formation did have merit in terms of defensive power. But it doesn't matter, if one hit fails, just hit it again. Thinking of this, John Hal raised his sword again and issued a new command. Type 2 Yanye Xingluo Kagaya Flame Dragon. All the night watchmen immediately raised their swords high, causing the red sun in the sky to change again. I saw the huge sun fireball erupting with even greater light, making it impossible to look directly at it. Then a pair of flaming dragon wings suddenly opened in the light. With such fierce force, a huge flaming dragon emerged from the sun and flew toward the rebels with an earth-shattering dragon roar. Come on! The roaring dragon hit their heads, and the rebels were immediately frightened. Only the commander of the military formation reacted, gritted his teeth and mobilized all the power of the military formation to once again condense the shadow of a giant sword that reached the sky and slashed at the flame dragon. Pure defense would never be able to block this attack, so he had to use offense instead of defense to break the structure of the opponent's attack. Only in this way could he rely on the damaged military defense to block the attack. His idea was correct, but he overestimated the power of his own military formation, and this mistake could be fatal. The flame dragon collided with the giant sword. The giant sword that the rebel leader expected to slay the dragon did not appear. Instead, as soon as it made contact, the flames immediately ignited the giant sword, causing it to melt and slowly dissipate. The flame dragon, which was only slightly smaller in size, swooped down again, directly smashing into the broken protective layer stirred up by the mixed military formation again, and exploded in the center of the rebel soldiers who formed the military formation. The devastating explosion impact and the boundless sea of fire spread instantly, swallowing up countless rebel soldiers and burning them to ashes in the blink of an eye. Even a legendary level warrior would find it difficult to survive such an explosion, let alone an ordinary soldier. A large number of soldiers were killed on the spot, and the mixed military formation suddenly collapsed and disappeared. The remaining soldiers were completely exposed to the hooves of the Night Watch Legion, charging forward with the power of the military formation, like lambs waiting to be slaughtered. The Yanlong breaks the formation. The victory is decided. The rebels have lost the courage and strength to resist, and it is harvest time. John Hal, who charged in front of the rebels, suddenly swung his sword and used the power of the military formation again. Yi Xing Luo Type 3 Shi Yan Sword Formation. The red sun suddenly shot out flaming sword energy all over the sky, falling into the battlefield, cutting vertically and horizontally, killing the fleeing enemies wantonly. The Night Watch Legion rushed into the rebels against a sun that continuously shot out infinite sword energy, killing them in a massive and unstoppable manner. Those who are struck by the sword energy will die. Those who are collided by the military formation will die even more. In such a desperate situation, the rebel soldiers finally collapsed completely and just wanted to escape, but they could not escape the end of death. Seeing that the situation had been decided, Wu Wei led his troops to slow down and finally stopped in front of the princess and her party. Wu Wei sat on the horse, looking down at the cute little girl in front of him who was staring blankly at him, trying to make his smile softer, and then said, "Your Royal Highness, Victor, the Supreme Commander of the Southern Border Front Border Corps, come with 250,000 border soldiers to put down the rebellion. Your Highness, Ishariel, please rest assured. With us here, no one can harm you. We will definitely be able to put down the rebellion and stabilize the kingdom again." Only then did Ishariel react. After hearing Wu Wei's promise, hope suddenly rekindled in her heart, but she was also a little confused. This big brother's men are very powerful and he has many troops. He should be able to deal with the rebels in the city and avenge me, right? However, my father and mother are no longer here, and even my 2 brothers were killed in battle. Even if this country stabilizes, what does it have to do with me? Wu Wei didn't know the confusion in the little girl's heart. At this moment, he looked at the subjugated princess, with an inexplicable light shining in his eyes. Whether he could legitimately control the country depended on the poor little girl in front of him. Although the act of taking advantage of a little girl is really unspeakable, Wu Wei, who calls himself a villain, will not have any psychological burden from this. After all, he is saving this country. The 3 dragon knights under its banner were killed by a strong man from the unknown sanctuary who suddenly came out. The 250,000 border counter-rebellion army that came all the way rescued the Princess Ishariel, defeated the mixed army formation on the spot, and wiped out 50,000 people. The news that the elite rebel army was approaching the city immediately reached the ears of Bluestone Archduke Eric. This series of bad news made Eric, who had just been proud of the spring breeze, black out. Then he was so angry that he smashed the vases and furniture in the entire room, and also chopped off the head of the messenger. After forcibly calming down, Grand Duke Sapphire immediately summoned all his generals in the Sapphire Palace and held a combat meeting. Can anyone answer me? Even though Miss Leia has helped us find the palace tunnel, why can that princess escape from the royal capital? How did that holy warrior who killed my dragon knight appear on the outskirts of the royal capital? And that counter-rebellion army that came out of nowhere, why did they arrive at the capital so quickly? How could they defeat my mixed army formation? Why can a defeated army that retreated from the border have a military formation? Tell me, there are so many questions, why is there no one who can answer me? What kind of elite generals, what kind of powerful party? I think you are just a bunch of scum. On the throne, Grand Duke Bluestone vented his emotions hysterically, scolding the generals present speechlessly. After a long time, Eric finally suppressed his emotions, sat back on the throne, and asked in a deep voice, "Tell me, what should I do next?" After Eric dared to ask, a general stood up and said, "Your Majesty the Duke." "Oh no, it's Your Majesty. Although we have suffered a loss and the loss is not small, it is not without advantages. Yes, we still have more than 300,000 troops. We still have the upper hand in terms of military strength. As long as Your Majesty is still here, the mixed military formation can still be used. As long as we are prepared this time, we will never fail again. My subordinates believe that although we don't know why the enemy didn't attack the city immediately, we actually don't need to be afraid at all. Yes, we have the advantage of strength, and with the help of the city wall defense of the royal capital and the support of the nobles in the city, these border troops will never be able to attack. When the other two coalition forces arrive, they will be wrapped up and eaten by us easily. Tianchi, the right location, people are all in our hands, there is no way we will lose. The generals said to each other that Wu Wei's counter-rebellion army did not pose much of a threat. However, Grand Duke Bluestone was obviously not as optimistic as them. Seeing the comments from his subordinates, he just felt irritated, so he waved his hand and shouted impatiently. No threat. If there was no threat, I would have called you all here. Everyone, go down and guard the city gate. The enemy may launch an attack at any time. If anyone loses his own area and worsens the war situation, I will chop off his head. Yes, the subordinates responded and resigned one after another. At this time, Grand Duke Bluestone suddenly shouted again, everyone else, please go down. Miss Leia, please stay. Hearing this, the subordinates glanced at the stunning beauty in the corner with ambiguous eyes, and quickened their pace, as if they were afraid of delaying the good work at hand. Soon, only Duke Eric and Alexiel were left in the conference hall. Kessir asked with a calm smile, Duke Eric, you don't seem to be in a good mood. Please don't laugh at me, Ms. Leia, I know I have really lost my grace today, Eric said with a wry smile, then suddenly straightened his sitting posture, looked at this intoxicating lady seriously, and asked. Although it is a bit inappropriate now, I still want to ask you, Miss Leia, can I get your allegiance now? The atmosphere was silent for a moment, and then the Miss Leia, in his mouth smiled slightly and calmly refused. Sir Eric, with all due respect, you have not fulfilled the promise between us, and your royal power has not been completely consolidated. The war in the kingdom is not over yet. The Orc army is still plundering the border. Prince Bor and Duke Hongye have not publicly acknowledged your dominance. You have not even completely taken control of the royal capital. After all, there is a powerful counterinsurgency army outside. The situation is not clear yet, so you may be a little too impatient, sir. Facing her answer, Eric remained silent for a long time with a sullen face, and then said word by word, I have sat on the throne of the Sapphire Palace, and the nobles in the city have bowed to me and called me your majesty. Treat me as your king. Miss Leia, even so, you are still unwilling to agree to me. There seemed to be suppressed thunder in his tone, and he seemed to have lost his patience. Alexiel simply stopped talking and used silence to maintain her attitude. In the end, Eric was unable to continue to be tough because he knew that he did not have much ability to be tough in front of the other party. If he wanted to conquer the other party, he could only rely on sincerity. Thinking of this, he sighed quietly, and then said, Miss Leia, although I can't get your allegiance yet, I really need your power now. Alexiel was noncommittal. Please tell me, Grand Duke. There are strong men from the Holy Realm in the army outside the city. I hope you can take action in the next battle to help me restrain the opponent and prevent him from acting recklessly. As long as the strong men of the Holy Realm are unable to take action, I am confident that I can rely on the magic ballistas and magic crystal cannons on the walls of the royal capital to defeat them without damaging my own foundation, and maintain the deterrent power against the other two groups of rebels and the power to shock the whole country. With force, in this way, kingship can be expected, and I will eventually be the king. He spoke extremely firmly, but Alexiel suddenly made a bold statement. Let's not talk about whether to take action or not. Since the Grand Duke is so afraid of the army outside the city, I have a suggestion that can relieve your worries. Eric's eyes lit up and he was overjoyed. Oh, that's the best. I wonder what Ms. Leia's advice is. An inexplicable smile appeared on Alexiel's lips, and she walked step by step towards Eric on the throne. With every step she took, her aura increased by 1 point, gradually overpowering the entire audience. I see that the counter-rebellion army outside the city is approaching fiercely, and the timing of its arrival is very subtle. I am afraid that it is just under the guise of counter-rebellion, but in fact it has another purpose. I think, Grand Duke, you might as well try to have a good talk with them. Maybe you can solve the problem without fighting. After hearing this, Eric was moved in his heart. I didn't expect this. If the other party is only acting for benefit, then I can secretly promise benefits in exchange for their support. In this way, I not only don't have to fight with them, but I can also gain more a boost. But what? Alexiel asked. already coming to the throne, only one step away from him. Eric has not discovered this yet, but is still considering the possibility of the proposal, but this is just an ideal situation. It is difficult to control the reality. After all, the opponent has already obtained the key chess piece Isariel, so it may not be possible. Ken risked breaking his promise to support me. At this time, Alexel smiled and said something astonishing. What's so difficult about this? As long as the Grand Duke expresses his willingness to become a chess piece in the opponent's hands, it will be fine. When you compare the two chess pieces, it's obvious which one is better. After all, if there is a ready-made puppet, why would the other party continue to go to war and spend so much effort to support a girl with no foundation to rise to power? Eric's expression was stagnant. He looked up into Alexel's eyes in disbelief, and asked, "Miss Leia, are you kidding? How could a normal person have such an idea, unless..." At this time, he thought of a possibility as if he was waking up from a dream, and suddenly his spine trembled. Alexel also knew that no matter how stupid the other party was, he would not have guessed the truth, and he also knew that the other party would not follow his advice, surrender to an unknown enemy, and voluntarily become a puppet. So, she decided to take advantage of the situation. "Mr. Eric, do you know why the counter-rebellion army has not attacked the city until now?" "Because they no longer have the need to attack the city." While Alexel said these words easily, which made Duke Bluestone's heart sink to the bottom, he slowly drew out the long sword from his waist. "Mr. Eric, thank you for your hospitality during this time. Although the days around you are not pleasant, I still decided to give you a decent ending." As he spoke, the dark golden holy wings slowly opened from Alexel's back. "Okay, Zhao." Alexel, who showed his true posture, held the long sword with his backhand and gently moved it forward. Eric, who was suppressed by the power of space at the sanctuary level, widened his eyes, but he could only watch helplessly as this ordinary long sword pierced his chest without any hindrance and stabbed his arm. His heart nailed him to the throne. There was no struggling, no crying, he couldn't do any of these, only the deep reluctance in his dilating pupils showed his regret. For him who has longed to be king all his life, dying on the throne should be considered a decent ending. However, he will not die immediately. Alexiel has blessed the sword with the power of holy light, which can at least suspend his life and prevent him from dying so quickly. There is no way, before the entire rebel army is completely controlled, once the Lord Bluestone Grand Duke dies, the soldiers and heroes directly belonging to him will immediately become ownerless. The assassination of the leader will soon be exposed, triggering a rebel riot. This is a situation that must never be allowed to happen. What her master wants is the entire rebel army. Wu Wei soon received the news from Alexiel. After learning that the last step of the secret chess move was activated, the life and death of Grand Duke Bluestone was already in her hands. Time was urgent. Wu Wei knew that there was no time to delay, so he immediately gave Alexiel the final instruction. Assist Hegniv and John Hal to enter the city, quickly assassinate the top rebel generals before they react, and then use the troop deployment token given to Alexiel by the Blue Stone bus to quickly take over the entire rebellion. Army Group. Wu Wei's strongest and only 3 holy warriors were dispatched together. Without knowing it, the rebel generals were destined to not escape the fate Wu Wei had arranged for them. Alexel used his space ability to quickly bring his 2 colleagues from the sanctuary into Sapphire Yi secretly. Then Alexel used the troop transfer token and asked people to recall all the senior generals among the rebels to the palace meeting hall again. Although the generals who had just been disciplined by their boss were strange, they still obeyed the order and returned to the meeting hall of Sapphire Palace. After that, as soon as the gate was closed and the territory was released, dozens of senior rebel generals became lambs to be slaughtered. 3 powerful men from the Holy Realm took action. How could these generals escape? They were all killed in a short time. At this point, no one can stop Alexel and the rebels. Before Duke Bluestone died completely, she had enough time to use the troop deployment token to temporarily subdue the soldiers. Once Eric dies, Alexel will be able to easily recruit the rebel soldiers under his command. Although a bit cruel, this was the fate Wu Wei had arranged for Grand Duke Bluestone from the beginning. Unfortunately, he didn't understand all this until he died. The plan went smoothly. Grand Duke Bluestone's 500,000 rebels had about 400,000 left when they occupied the royal capital. Even if Wu Wei's anti-rebellion army descended from the sky and annihilated 50,000 elite troops outside the city, there were still about 350,000 left, of troops said. It was impossible to capture these troops in such a short period of time. Some middle-level and grassroots generals sensed something was wrong in advance and caused some commotion. But that's all. The army, which has taken off its leaders and removed its top cadres, is essentially paralyzed, and a little commotion will not help. Alexiel quickly seized control of several major units in the rebel army, and then opened the city gate of Chudu while suppressing the riot. Wu Wei, who had been waiting outside the city for a long time, immediately ordered his team to enter the city. More than 200,000 troops swarmed in and quickly took over the city walls and barracks under the leadership of Alexiel. Anyone who dares to disobey will be killed. Those who stir up riots will be killed. Anyone who refuses to hand over troops will be killed. Under the thunderous method, several commotions were quickly extinguished before they started to spread. At this point, all the 350,000 rebels led by Bluestone are in the hands of Wu Wei. In the afternoon after the anti-rebellion army entered the city, hundreds of giant horns protruded from the walls of the royal capital, and at the same time a long and distant victory song was sounded. Hearing this continuous flute, Wu Wei, who was waiting for the good news with tens of thousands of guards outside the royal capital city, smiled slightly, waved the cloak behind him, stood up, and reached out to the bewildered Princess Isariel next to him. Invite. Your Highness, did you hear that? This kingdom is inviting its master to return to the throne. Isariel had no idea what was happening. She didn't know why the city gate opened on its own and the army entered before they even attacked the city. She didn't know why all the enemies seemed to have lost their threat as soon as this counterinsurgency army arrived. Everything became so easy. She didn't even know that she, who had just escaped from the royal capital, was really qualified to be its master. These doubts made her look at Wu Wei with some fear, and asked in a confused and cautious voice. Brother Victor. Well, okay, it's Mr. Unalos. Do you think I'm really suitable to be a qualified heroine? Pipe 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 pipe. It was Wu Wei's own request to call Wu Wei Ching Unalos. According to Isariel's original intention, she actually wanted to call him eldest brother, or other close titles. Wu Wei saw her confusion, so he took the initiative to step forward, held up her hand, and encouraged her gently but firmly. Please don't doubt yourself, Your Royal Highness. You have the purest blood of the Cornflower royal family, and you undoubtedly bear the heavy responsibility of revitalizing this country. In this country, you are the embodiment of royal power. There is no one better than you, more suitable to be the master of this country. Please remember, no one can question your orthodox status. You can relax. Let's go. No matter what happens next, I will be by your side. Wu Wei's voice seemed to have magic power, gradually calming down Isariel's inner uneasiness and tension. She nodded her cute little head vigorously and said firmly, I understand, I will definitely do what I should do. Next, I have to ask you, Mr. Unalos, to assist me. Wu Wei suddenly raised the corners of his mouth and bowed slightly to salute. This is my honor, Your Highness Princess. After performing the symbolic courtesy of a courtier, Wu Wei waved his hand and loudly ordered. All the guards will obey the order and escort Her Royal Highness into the city. Amidst the neat forest of soldiers and the long blast of trumpets, Wu Wei led the guards and escorted Princess Isariel, swaggering into the royal capital from the city gate. No one can stop it, viewers can only welcome it. With the respect of the people in the city, Wu Wei took the princess back to the Sapphire Palace in glory. In the meeting hall of the palace, Isariel saw her father-killing enemy, Eric, the Grand Duke of Bluestone, who was crucified on the throne. Your Highness Princess, you see, this is the fate of someone who has no qualifications but insists on stealing the royal power. Wu Wei pointed to the throne and said to Isariel, please remember that only you can sit in this position. No matter who wants to take it, we must eliminate him. With that said, Wu Wei waved his hand slightly, and several guards immediately came forward, took Duke Eric's body away, and carefully cleaned up the blood on the throne. After the sapphire-inlaid throne regained its former splendor, Wu Wei stretched out his hand and said, Your Highness, please take a seat. Isariel was still a little scared at the moment, but she still nodded, held up her skirt and walked step by step to the throne and sat down. Sir Unalos, what should I do next? Hearing Isariel's inquiry, Wu Wei smiled and said, "The next step is of course to eliminate the rebels in the royal capital. Don't forget, Your Highness, when the city was broken, the hands of the officials and nobles in the city were it's all stained with the blood of members of the royal family." When Isariel heard this, she also remembered the bloody and brutal scenes that happened in the Sapphire Palace that night, and couldn't help clenching her fists. Before that, those cold and ruthless faces were all ministers listening to the king's orders in this meeting hall. What Mr. Unalos said is absolutely true. There is no place for disloyal people in the royal capital, and they must be punished as they deserve. Perhaps out of deep hatred, there was a hint of sternness and domineering in her tone when she said this, which was exactly what Wu Wei wanted to see. Wu Wei then waved his hand and ordered to the soldiers below, "Give me the command to arrest all the nobles in the city and escort them to the Sapphire Palace to await trial. Anyone who resists the arrest will be killed on the spot. Anyone who escapes will be regarded as a fugitive. He is wanted nationwide, and anyone who dares to harbor a fugitive will be shot without mercy." Yes, the soldiers retreated in response, not only to convey Wu Wei's order, but also to initiate a brutal massacre. Every one of the nobles in the royal capital supported the rebels and provided convenience for them. Those who disobeyed have been eliminated by Duke Bluestone. Therefore, Wu Wei's soldiers only need to remove all the nobles and officials. Just find them all. At the same time, Wu Wei also asked his direct subordinates to clean up the rebels under his command, and find all the middle-level and grassroots heroic commanders and get rid of them. Wu Wei already has many heroic units promoted from the local human race, so there is no need to keep the restless elements among the rebels. Just keep the God-given soldiers among the rebels. Their loyalty and morale determine everything, and they are easier to conquer than the capricious humans. When Isariel was sitting on the throne and waiting quietly, she had no idea how many bloody storms were raging in the royal capital. Nobles with a little more sobriety know that rebels will never have a chance to make a new choice, and the only fate if they are caught is death. Therefore, they all chose to resist or escape. Basically, few of them would be captured without resistance. If they didn't resist, they would be dead. If they escaped, there would still be a slight possibility of escape. Even any fool would know how to choose. And all this is what Wu Wei wants to see. The whole city was surrounded by Wu Wei's army. With an army of 600,000 and 3 strong men from the Holy Domain suppressing it, a group of nobles could not make any splash at all. Whether they resist or run for their lives, as long as they resist arrest, Wu Wei's soldiers can kill them openly, ransack their homes, and take away for Wu Wei the wealth they have accumulated for generations, dozen or even dozens of generations. These are all Wu Wei's military expenses. In just one day, the royal capital was completely cleared. Except for the 20 or so arrested nobles of the royal capital, all other nobles and officials were eliminated without exception. Wu Wei's army also completely controlled every corner of the royal capital. At Wu Wei's request, Princess Isariel put on a simple yet luxurious dress, held the scepter symbolizing royal power, put on the old king's crown, and judged the sins of the criminals in the protagonist role. There is no doubt about the result. Amid cries of pain and begging for mercy, more than 20 ministers were pulled out of the palace, paraded through the streets, and finally hanged in the kingdom square. The people in the city were horrified and applauded loudly, and then spread the reputation of Queen Isariel everywhere and praised the anti-rebellion army that eliminated harm for the country. It seems that at this moment, the dissatisfaction of the people of the royal capital against the royal family has disappeared. Under such a situation of, the army and the people are united, Wu Wei struck while the iron was hot and had people announce to the whole city that day that the coronation ceremony of Queen Isariel would be held in the near future, and the heroes who had saved the country would be canonized. Counter the rebels. Lord, this is the list of property seized from the remnants of the royal capital's nobles and their mansions yesterday. Please take a look at it. In a side hall of the Sapphire Palace, Charles held a thick book in front of Wu Wei with a look of admiration and excitement. Wu Wei took it and took a look with interest, and almost couldn't hold back a breath of cold air. It happened. He really didn't expect that these nobles in the royal capital were all so rich, so rich. No wonder this country is about to be destroyed. It is surrounded by a bunch of moths. Only when it is not destroyed will there be ghosts. But for Wu Wei, this is a great thing. This is simply a wave of gain. For a long time, Wu Wei will not have to worry about running out of money to recruit troops. 50 million spiritual crystals, 10 tons of gold, 50 tons of silver. 927, has tens of thousands of general-purpose magic gems and hundreds of boxes of ordinary gems. The Lord has more than 120 pieces of equipment. Although most of them are only the lowest level of extraordinary rare level, and there are not even a few pieces of the second level of rare items, it is still a considerable amount of wealth. Other rare magic metals such as fine gold, mithril, orichalcum, and meteoric iron, although the quantity is not large, are all valuable, and even if you have money, you may not be able to buy them. There are also various treasures, high-level magic gems, skill scrolls, high-level fighting spirit training methods, spell scrolls, top-level materials, etc. The combined value is probably much higher than 50 million spiritual crystals. These gains obviously exceeded Wu Wei's expectations, but the biggest gain from this operation was this country. Now there are only a few steps left to take control of this country. It can be said that the general trend is in hand and everything is under control. Thinking of this, the list in my hand also lost its appeal. Wu Wei threw the list aside casually, then stood up and asked, "Char, how long until the enthronement ceremony starts?" Charles replied respectfully, "Sir, it starts in 20 minutes. Your Highness Isariel, are you ready?" Of course, today's Princess Isariel must be the most dazzling star in the entire royal capital, and she is absolutely in line with the majesty of a queen. At this point, Charles added with a smile, "Everything will be as you wish." Wu Wei nodded with satisfaction and reminded with a smile, "From today on, you will call her Her Majesty the Queen." Let's go and see Our Majesty the Queen. She must be very nervous now. At this time, I have to stay by her side. At this moment, in the princess's bedroom in the palace, while looking at the gorgeous yet childish face in the mirror, Isariel asked the head guard next to her with some inexplicable emotions, "Sister Mozanna, do you think I am really good? Can I lead this country to prosperity? Do the people in the city really support me as king?" Mozanna, who was still combing her hair, paused for a moment, thinking of Lord Victor who had descended from the sky with a magical weapon, and looked a little worried. Anyone with a discerning eye can see that the people are just afraid of the 600,000 troops in the city and have nothing to do with Her Royal Highness. In the final analysis, she is just a puppet in the opponent's hands. But it's useless to say this now. Telling her will only increase her troubles and may increase variables. It's better to let her be the 10 glamorous queens with peace of mind. Thinking of this, Mozanna forced a smile and persuaded, "Your Highness Isariel. No, now I should call you Your Majesty. Lord Victor has fought thousands of miles to save the kingdom from destruction. He is a loyal and reliable strong man. With his help, you will definitely be able to restore the kingdom's past glory. Lord Victor is right, no one in this country is more suitable to be a king than you. And as a king, the last thing you should do is doubt your own abilities." Hearing similar words again, Isariel fell silent and looked at the mirror not knowing what she was thinking. The atmosphere in the room became silent. At this moment, a maid's voice sounded outside the door. "Your Majesty the Queen, the coronation procession is about to begin. Lord Victor has arrived and is waiting outside the palace." Hearing this, Isariel took a deep breath, stood up, and said seriously, "Let's go, Sister Mozanna, my subjects are waiting for me to appear." Due to time constraints, the enthronement ceremony could not be too grand, and many ceremonies were simplified. The main arrangement is for Isariel to parade around the main avenue of the royal capital under the escort of the army, receive the enthusiastic attention of the whole city's soldiers and civilians, and then publicly consecrate the country's heroes who protect the country in the Kingdom Square. During the parade, Wu Wei's army stood erect on both sides of the road, forming 2 solid human walls. Outside the human wall, there were crowds of enthusiastic people from the royal capital, with warm smiles on everyone's faces. But Wu Wei took the lead and escorted the Queen's carriage with his elite troops as it slowly passed by. The people along the road cooperated and behaved in line with the current atmosphere. Applaud, cheer, shout, show loyalty. Everything seemed to be what everyone expected, but what prompted them to come here was fear and blades. After several hours, the parade finally arrived at Kingdom Square. Wearing a crown and holding a scepter in hand, Isariel stepped onto the high platform that had been set up and delivered a simple and powerful speech. Then came the most critical canonization ceremony. In the name of the King of Cornflowers, General Hegnev is canonized as the general protector of the kingdom. Canonize General John Hal as the commander-in-chief of the kingdom's army. Canonize the Mage Seal as the kingdom's minister of magic. Consecrate Rhodes Yanshan's sword as the commander of the royal capital's city defense. After conferring important positions on Wu Wei's confidants, Isariel turned her head and glanced at Wu Wei beside her, and declared in a loud voice. Finally, Victor Euronos, the hero of the national defense, was granted the title of hereditary Duke of Cornflower, with a fiefdom covering the entire southern territory of the kingdom and its borders, and was specially conferred the title of Regent of the kingdom. He takes charge of all government affairs in the country for me, and when you see him, it is like seeing me. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire army began to shout in unison. Long live the Queen! Long live the Regent! Long live the Queen! Long live the Regent! Long live the Queen! Long live the Regent! Under the influence of this tsunami-like voice, the citizens of the city who were watching hesitated and began to shout. Long live the Queen! Long live the Prince Regent! Long live the Queen! Long live the Prince Regent! In the blink of an eye, the whole city was boiling. You have been canonized by the Kingdom of Human Power, Cornflower Kingdom, obtained the title, Hereditary Duke of the Kingdom, and unlocked the tasks related to the Lord's profession, Fiefdom Duke. You have obtained a infeft territory, the southern border of the Cornflower Kingdom. Warning, your territory, the southern border of the Cornflower Kingdom is being invaded by foreign hostile forces. Some territories are forcibly occupied. Please respond as soon as possible. The occupied territories will not be able to operate normally and will be out of your control. If the territories are occupied, if you occupy it for more than 1 month, you will completely lose the territory. Wu Wei's ears soon heard the prompts from the Lord system. But he didn't care about the content. He does not like the Lord career path of the feudal nobles, so naturally he will not choose it. Although the large territory he obtained was extremely vast, he didn't take it seriously. Because in theory, the entire territory of the Cornflower Kingdom is about to be controlled by him, and a mere southern border cannot satisfy his appetite. As for the Orc Stormrage Court's army raging in the southern border area, Wu Wei has mobilized an army of undead from the Night City to deal with them. By the time he has settled the 2 rebel armies in the kingdom, he has completely taken control of the Cornflower Kingdom, will naturally take out his hand to deal with these orcs. By then, it will also be the time for him to start his next large-scale strategic plan. After the enthronement ceremony was over, the royal guard sent the newly promoted Queen Cornflower back to the Sapphire Palace. Wu Wei began a new round of preparations for the expedition. According to intelligence, the remaining 2 rebel armies are about to arrive at Baifeng territory, which means they are not far from the royal capital. The 200,000 royal army led by Geralt Longhui, the leader of the Sanctuary Dragon Knights of the Cornflower Kingdom, was ultimately unable to withstand the flanking attack of the 2 rebel armies. After successive defeats, they were defeated until only 100,000 troops were left. Most of them were injured, exhausted, and lacked fighting strength. It was only a matter of time before they were completely defeated. Speaking of which, this Dragon Knight commander really lives up to his reputation as a holy Dragon Knight. Without a military formation, he led 200,000 royal troops to block Prince Bor's 400,000 rebels. At the beginning, he was even able to suppress the rebels and cause Prince Bor to lose his troops. When the second prince died in battle, Duke Hongyi's 250,000 rebels lost control. He switched battlefields again and took over the heavy burden. He took advantage of the terrain at Fixia Pass to counter the 2 groups of rebels at the same time and kept them out of the pass for a long time. For half a month. If it weren't for his efforts, the 3 rebel armies would have converged long ago and captured the royal capital in one fell swoop. It can be said that he was the biggest contributor to buying time for Wu Wei. Now that the Grand Duke of Bluestone is the leader, all the rebels were eaten by Wu Wei, but Geralt's army finally couldn't hold on anymore, and he continued to retreat towards the royal capital with 100,000 remaining troops. According to intelligence, among the 2 rebel armies, Prince Bor still has 300,000 troops, while Duke Hongyi's army has 200,000 troops left. This is a battle loss ratio of 1.5 under an extremely disadvantageous situation, which is already a very good result. After reading the intelligence, Wu Wei quickly decided to take the initiative to send troops to join the royal army before its complete defeat. He defeated the 2 combined rebels and defeated them in one battle, completely ending the rebellion in the kingdom. Without further ado, Wu Wei ordered the mobilization of the entire army and preparation of supplies, and at the same time issued an order to seal beside him. Pass my oral message and immediately send envoys to inform the whole country, asking the lords and nobles from all over the country to surrender to Her Majesty Queen Ishariel. At the same time, I will also send people to the front line to issue an ultimatum to the rebels. Warn them to surrender as soon as possible, hand over their military power, and then make atonement to the new king of the Cornflower Kingdom, Queen Ishariel. If they still persist in their stubbornness, when the counter-rebellion army arrives, they will die without a burial place. After hearing this, Charles immediately asked, Sir, is this what you once told me about sending troops first with courtesy? That's called courtesy before fighting. We are an upright army of justice. Naturally, we must use this status to put a little pressure on our opponents and lower their morale before the war begins. After listening to Wu Wei's explanation, Charles nodded repeatedly, then immediately turned around and went down to make arrangements. After Charles left, Wu Wei called Alexiel again. Holy Lord, do you have any instructions? The beautiful girl was as respectful as ever and knelt down on one knee when she arrived. Wu Wei was also polite as always. I told you not to be polite, Kessir. I called you here because I want to give you a task. We will lead troops to fight against the rebellion soon, and I will leave the royal capital to you to guard. We won't leave too many troops, because your mission is not to defend the city, but to protect Ishariel. You know how important she is to us, so I will give this mission to you. Of course Alexiel knew this, so she would not complain that she could not follow the Holy Lord to fight for him this time. I understand, Lord Holy Lord. As long as I am here, Your Majesty Ishariel will never have any problems. Wu Wei nodded and reassured. Very good, I completely trust your ability. I know what you want most is to fight with me. Don't worry, when the time is right, I will eventually take you to fight with me. The reputation of an angel it will definitely resound throughout the whole mind. After hearing this, Alexiel immediately touched her chest and saluted, and replied with a bright smile, Thank you for your understanding. I will always be patient and look forward to that day. By the way, Lord Holy Lord, there is one thing that you may not know. If you are interested, I would like to introduce a person to you. I believe he should be able to bring considerable help to this war against the rebels. Quote. Oh, Wu Wei raised his brows and was a little surprised. He didn't expect that there were things about Alexiel that he didn't know about, which was indeed strange. Wu Wei soon met the person Alexiel said could help him, an old man with a beard and a kind face. When he saw him, Wu Wei had some guesses, but before he could ask, Alexiel introduced him. Lord Holy Lord, this is Master Kolatov, the chief magic advisor of the kingdom's royal family. He is also the target you wanted me to assassinate. Wu Wei looked at him inexplicably and asked, So, you let him go at that time? Alexiel said frankly. Not only that, after he returned to the royal capital after being injured, when Duke Bluestone's rebels broke into the city, I found him in advance and hid him in a safe place until I brought him here today. See you. After listening to this, Wu Wei understood what she meant. Although he didn't know why Alexiel admired him so much and did so many things at the trouble, she just wanted to subdue this holy mage for him and increase the history in his hands. Emperor. Although she was free to make her own decisions, it was not a bad thing. The only thing Wu Wei didn't understand was that this holy domain mage, one of the former twins of the Cornflower Kingdom, would really attack her, the real enemy of the country. Will the mastermind behind everything secretly surrender? Thinking of this, he put away the smile on his face, looked into the vicissitudes of the holy domain mage's eyes and asked, So, you should have guessed everything, right? Even so, do you still dare to come to see me? Are you not afraid that I will kill you? Are you going to silence me? If I want to kill you, Alexiel can't stop me. The old mage was leaning on a cane, and the smile on his face did not change at all. I am not afraid of death, and I also know that a strong person who can conquer a person like Miss Kessier should not be afraid of a weak old man. The threat of the guy. Wu Wei was silent for a while, then suddenly laughed. Very good, it's really interesting. With that said, he asked directly, Old man, I want to know what you think of my existence. Kolatov thought for a while and replied seriously, a careerist who is never satisfied and has the appearance of a king. In my opinion, a mere cornflower kingdom is probably not your ultimate goal. Wu Wei raised his voice and asked again. Then let me ask you, what is your choice? Do something for me or end your life. The old mage turned to look at Alexel, who was aside, and then gave a reply. If I choose to die, Ms. Alexel, who let me go, will be disappointed, right? There is nothing wrong with being loyal to you, but I hope to spend the rest of my rotten life in exchange for a promise from you. Wu Wei raised his hand, indicating that he could express his request. I don't object to the principle of equivalent exchange. Tell me, let me hear what I have to pay to get the allegiance of a holy domain mage. Such a price. The old mage pondered for a moment, seeming to be recalling the past. After a moment, he slowly said, I hope that no matter what the future holds, you can ensure that the bloodline of the Cornflower royal family will not be extinguished, that's all. Wu Wei understood clearly that this was because he was afraid that after he truly took control of the country, he would kill Isolil, the last bloodline of the original royal family that had lost its use value. To be honest, Wu Wei had no such idea. He could kill him, but it was not necessary. As the old guy said before, the Cornflower Kingdom is not Wu Wei's ultimate goal at all. His short-term goal is the entire Kingdom Alliance. A poor little girl is not a threat to him at all, but it has a lot of uses if she keeps it. It's not difficult for me. Wu Wei thought for a while and said, although I actually don't like transactions that take too long, but I think you're worth it, he said, spreading his hands in welcome. I'll take this deal, After a day of preparation, Wu Wei's army quickly completed mobilization and assembled outside the city. Of the 600,000 troops to suppress the rebellion, Wu Wei left 50,000 to defend the city and took away the rest. The army of 550,000 people is divided into 90,000 spearmen, 20,000 scouts, 60,000 sword and shield soldiers, about 150,000 archers, 40,000 giant axe soldiers, 80,000 light cavalry and swordsmen. 50,000, about 10,000 long night guards, 35,000 mages, 3,000 knights, 10,000 logistics medics, 110 dragon-blooded warriors, and 8th-level Earth Knights riding the 8th-level Mount Tyrannosaurus, 200 people. With such a force, coupled with the two top Saint Realm powerhouses Hegniv and John Hal, plus the suppression of 3 legendary powerhouses, the mere rebels can be defeated with just a lift of their hands. What's more, Wu Wei is still holding a big killer weapon that he just got. Although the strength of the Holy Domain Mage of Kolatov is only at the 3rd level of the Holy Domain, the forbidden spell he masters is a military-level deterrent weapon. During this time of countering the rebellion, Wu Wei happened to see how terrifying the power of the forbidden spell is. When everything was ready, Wu Wei, wearing a mighty black armor, said goodbye to Queen Isariel at the city gate. Her Majesty the Queen, I will end the battle and come back as soon as possible. I hereby assure you that after this Wang Nuo Jiao suppresses the rebellion, Cornflower will return to peace. Isariel nodded solemnly and blessed. Sir Euronos, I believe that you will be victorious in this expedition and bring back the final victory. I just hope that you will take care of yourself. The kingdom still needs you as the regent to protect you. Welcome. Wu Wei laughed after hearing this. Your Majesty, don't worry, the rebels will not be able to hurt me at all. They can be destroyed with just a raise of their hands. With that said, he said goodbye neatly. It's getting late, Your Majesty the Queen, I'm leaving now. Sir Euronos, I wish you a triumphant victory. For the Bluebonnets. In the roaring wind, Wu Wei mounted his war horse, came to the front of the army, and shouted loudly. All the counter-rebellion troops obey the order and follow me on the expedition. Just as Wu Wei was leading the army on the expedition, an emergency combat meeting was also taking place in the rebels' temporary military camp. What's going on with Eric? The royal capital that has already been captured is actually being killed by a group of guys who run out of nowhere. I can't even kill all the people, leaving Isariel as a scourge. What is going on with this so-called counterinsurgency army? Where did this victor come from? Queen, Regent, you really don't know how to live or die. Prince Boar, who had blonde curly hair and was already somewhat old, was sitting in the main seat of the military tent. His boundless anger made him lose his manners and he kept yelling curses. This made his subordinates dare not speak and could only remain silent. Only a tall and thin man sitting at the top on the left didn't show off his face. Seeing that he kept saying meaningless angry words, he interrupted rudely. Prince Boar, it makes no sense to say this now. Please maintain the demeanor of a noble. You will not be able to lead your soldiers to complete your great cause. If it gets to this point and you still can't win this country, then we will have to consider changing our 340 cooperation partners." There was a hint of threat in the tall and thin man's words. When Prince Bull heard his words, a trace of anger flashed in his eyes, but he finally suppressed his emotions. Because this man with an arrogant attitude represents the most powerful force in the entire Kingdom Alliance. Not to mention that he didn't dare to offend, even the leader of a country didn't dare to scold him for his weakness. Prince Boar even lowered his attitude and said to him, "Don't worry, the Kent envoy, he is just an ignorant guy. They have no idea who their opponent is. With the support of your country, no matter whether it is that idiot Eric or some bullshit regent who occupies the royal capital, the final result will not change. The so-called counter-rebellion army is just a grasshopper." The envoy from another country named Kent felt very comfortable. He held his head high and nodded contentedly and said, "If you are confident, I will feel relieved. I believe that Prince Boar will not disappoint us." The high-ranking rebels present also nodded and agreed. However, just as the atmosphere in the military tent gradually became harmonious, a discordant laugh sounded at an inappropriate time. "Really? So this is how you view us, but I have a different view." The atmosphere in the venue was stagnant, and someone immediately asked, "Who is it? Come out." As soon as he finished speaking, a crimson flame suddenly appeared out of thin air in the open space in the center of the military account. The temperature suddenly rose by dozens of degrees, becoming even hotter than the scorching summer heat. The rebel commanders quickly stood up and drew their swords, making defensive postures with solemn expressions, guarding against the raging fire. They didn't wait long, and saw the flames suddenly disappear as they rose, revealing a handsome man with a smile. This uninvited guest was dressed in military uniform and a dark cloak. He was holding a long sword that was gradually returning from red to black, just like holding a long sword that had just been pulled out of the stove, had just been formed and was cooling naturally. Like a sword. Everyone's expressions became more and more ugly, not only because the camp of the army commander was invaded by an unknown enemy, but also because they felt an extremely terrifying aura from this enemy. Even though he was just standing there, he was sweating all over, as if he was not facing a human being, but a burning sun. Not to mention getting closer, it feels like just keeping this distance still, it may be dried out after a long time. Of course this is just their illusion, but this momentum has proved how terrifying the other party is. Sacred Realm Powerhouse, who are you? Why are you here? Prince Boar's personal strength is stronger than that of Grand Duke Bluestone. He has the strength of a 9th level knight without relying on the power of his mount, so he certainly has good vision. Moreover, the other party has no intention of concealing his own realm. Of course he can see that this is a mighty sword, said translation. That's why he was so frightened that he asked questions without thinking. The sword master who teleported to the rebel headquarters by unknown means did not seem to have any intention of concealing his identity. When he heard the question, he immediately introduced himself in a calm and elegant manner. "I am the regent of the Cornflower Kingdom, Victor. Your lord's chief swordsman, commander of the Long Night Guards, Xi'an Sword Master John Hal." As he spoke, he raised his long sword, pointed the tip of the sword directly at Prince Boar, and said in a loud voice, "I came here this time on the order of His Highness the Regent to issue a final warning to you and other rebellious people. My lord's anti-rebellion army has set off, and your doom is coming. If you don't declare your surrender and hand over your military power, you rebels will only die when the army arrives. Don't say you didn't predict what you said." His tone was ups and downs, with a tone that was righteous and could not be blasphemed. Everyone present was so angry that they shouted and cursed. "What did you say? Where do you think this is? Shut up. I'll make sure you never come back today. ... As he said that, someone had already rushed over with a sword. After all, at this point, who would choose to surrender? Faced with the siege of everyone, John Hal closed his eyes and whispered. Sure enough, how can a group of stubborn people cherish the mercy of the Lord? The next moment, he suddenly opened his eyes, and the long sword swept out, and the whole place was suddenly filled with the light of the eyes. In the scorching light, only a mighty voice remained. The sin of a fool can only end with the sword. Sacred swordsmanship. The second style of the shining sword, Star Tail Flame style. Boom. The entire military tent was engulfed and wiped out by the flames. The rebel commanders howled and were swept away with a sword, their whole bodies burning with flames, scattering out like splashing charcoal. Everyone's injuries are the same, and everyone is injured but not dead. At the center of the impact, John Hal slowly put away his sword and looked at the rebel generals on the ground as if he were looking at a group of dead people. Rejoice, my lord wants to defeat you openly, otherwise you would have died by my sword. Enjoy your last moments and repent. With that said, John Hal drew his sword again, swung it out of thin air, and his body flashed like a firework for a moment and then disappeared. This is the reason why he can easily enter the depths of the enemy without being discovered. He has the ability to teleport with the holy swordsmanship moves. Shining Sword Style 1, Flashing Stars Die. Watching the enemy disappear calmly, Prince Boar, who had just stood up and extinguished the flames on his body, looked at his subordinates on the ground and the camp that seemed to have been burned by fire. The expression of gritted teeth could not hide the fear in his eyes. At this moment, he finally had deep doubts about himself. Even with the secret help of the Azedalancy Kingdom, can I really defeat such a powerful enemy? Chapter 71. Just when John Hal was making a big fuss in the rebel camp along Prince Bull's side, Hegnev was also rushing to where the rebels were located along Duke Hongyi's side. Although they all set out from the royal capital, Hegnev, as a fighter with fists and fists, does not have the means to elementalize his body and integrate it into the high-speed flight of sword light like John Hal. The most he can do is summon the blood Chi Kanglong and fly like a flying dragon in the sky, so he is not as fast as John Hal and has not reached his destination yet. Unaware that a big killer star was approaching, the Red Leaf leader rebels were still marching, trying to catch up with the retreating kingdom army and beat them up. In the center of the army, there was a red mobile wooden horse-drawn carriage pulled by 5 large dragon beasts, shield-headed earth dragons, which was particularly eye-catching. This is the exclusive camp of Duke Hongye, Joel Red Maple Leaf, but at this time, there are not only 10 Dukes of Hongye inside. When his eyes came to the carriage tent, a man wearing a red robe, holding a cross and praying with his eyes closed, was sitting in the main seat. On the contrary, the owner, Duke Hongye, was sitting in the side seat, accompanying him with a respectful expression. It is hard to imagine that this middle-aged man is actually the general of the kingdom who once won the title of Duke for his outstanding military exploits. The power of time is clearly evident in him. It seems that the first person under the sacred territory of the Cornflower Kingdom cannot withstand the erosion of time and extravagant life. After he patiently waited for the man in the cassock to finish praying, Tuan cautiously asked, "Lord Saint Remigius, according to the spies' report, Grand Duke Bluestone has died in the royal capital, and his entire army was collected by a commander in the southern border army named Victor Euronos. It is estimated that this man has a total of 600,000 troops in his hands. Now he supports the remnant of the royal family, Princess Isariel, to take the throne, defend the royal capital, and become the regent of the Cornflower Kingdom. With the strength we have now, I'm afraid we are no match for him. Can the Holy See send some more support? I'm afraid that I won't be able to complete the Pope's mission and delay the great cause of the Holy See. If anyone who is familiar with the power structure of the Holy See is here, they will definitely be shocked when they hear his name. A member of the Holy See with the word, holy, in front of his name is an important figure who already has a holy name. No matter what his position is, his strength is at least at the level of the Holy Realm. Who would have thought that among the rebels in the Red Leaf territory, there would be a cardinal, a powerful saint from the Holy See? After hearing what Duke Joel said, the cardinal with the holy name slowly opened his eyes and said in a tone that seemed to have seen through everything, "Commander of the border army. It's just a gimmick. It seems that we are not the only ones eyeing the Cornflower Kingdom. We just didn't expect that he would move so fast. This time we made a wedding dress for him. Unlike the Grand Duke of Bluestone, this is by no means a simple opponent, and the details are still unknown, which poses a greater threat to us than Prince Boar, who is secretly supported by the Kingdom of Bezettelands. The Holy See is now constrained by both the Kingdom Alliance and the Gold and Silver Empire, and cannot send troops to support openly, but you can rest assured that I will take action when necessary." After hearing this, Chowser breathed a sigh of relief and quickly complimented, "With Lord Saint Remigius taking action, and the 24 archangels you brought to form a small exclusive military formation, this operation will definitely be successful in one fell swoop." How can these short-sighted guys know how great the power of the Holy See is? This time is just to let them know that in the face of absolute strength, no matter how many troops there are, they are just false numbers. Bishop Street. Remigius did not pay attention to his flattery, but he also agreed with his words. In his opinion, even if it is only a small military formation composed of himself, a holy priest, and 24 legendary archangels, it is enough to be invincible in the Holy Realm. With such high mobility and high quality of holy power, how strong can the enemy be, no matter how strong it is? After all, it was just a small place in a remote area of the Morning Light domain. Even the Kingdom Alliance was just a bunch of country bumpkins in his eyes, let alone a small country on the verge of ruin. It is an honor for this country to have the honor to be the outpost of the Holy See in the Kingdom Alliance. Just as he was thinking this, a thundering dragon roar suddenly sounded from the outside world, followed by 10 loud explosions. There was a sudden commotion among the rebel troops outside. What a big dragon! No, it's a human. Enemy attack. There is an enemy attack. Stop. The entire army is on alert. All troops on alert. The archers are cocked, and the mage starts spell locking. Protect the Duke. The two people in the mobile camp looked at each other and frowned at the same time. Enemy attack. Who would dare to attack such a large army at this time? Duke Joseph quickly called his guards and asked, "What's going on? Someone attacked our army. How many people are there?" "Sir, someone carried out a large-scale attack on the vanguard of our army and blocked the way of the army. But according to the news from the people in front, it seems that the other party only has one." Exclamation mark quote. The guard's tone was a little uncertain at the end. Duke Hongye was also very surprised after hearing this. One person, attacking an army of 200,000 people, how dare you stand in front of the army? Is he crazy? On the contrary, after hearing this, Bishop Remigius looked at him and reminded him, the person who dares to do this is definitely a strong enough confident man. Let's go and see who he is. After saying that, he got up and walked outside the camp. Above the sky, the giant bloody dragon roared towards the sky. It wasn't until it saw the long winding snake composed of densely packed marching troops on the ground that it swooped down wildly. Amid the exclamations of the soldiers, the bloody dragon crashed to the ground and hit the front of the army hard, causing a huge explosion, roar and shock wave. The leading rebel soldiers were instantly shattered to pieces, and the subsequent large-scale impact was like a passing typhoon, knocking countless soldiers flying and causing them to flip over. For a while, the ground was filled with wailing and panicked shouts. The rebel soldiers shouted reminders while quickly organizing defenses to guard against the sudden appearance of enemies ahead. Under the watchful eyes of all the troops, the smoke slowly dispersed. At the center of the explosion, a tall figure kneeling on one knee with his fist on the ground slowly stood up, showing a domineering and invincible posture, and shouted, "Stop the rebels ahead. Here we respectfully welcome the king's orders." His voice is extremely loud, more shocking than a big brass bell, and more far-reaching than fighting against the trumpet. All the soldiers present could hear his voice clearly, but they were also confused because of it. Where did this guy come from? What royal order? One man dares to attack our army, and after beating us, he dares to ask us to stop and obey. This fool is too arrogant. The vanguard commanders of the Hongye leader rebels immediately shouted and cursed, and at the same time ordered the soldiers to reorganize their formation and organize a counterattack. Who is it? You dare to charge into the battle alone? Are you tired of living? Everyone who is still alive, stand up and surround him. The archers obey the order and shoot him to death. Where's the mage? Mage, use your magic and kill him. Anyone who stands in the way of our army will die. The rebels' offensive quickly hit the tall man overwhelmingly. However, this tough and domineering man didn't seem to care, and even had time to shake his head and sigh. Even if you have seen the power of my attack, do you still dare to make such pointless resistance? Should I praise your courage or should I say that you don't know how to live or die? You bunch of idiots, please listen to me instead. The man let out an angry roar and punched hard, manifesting out of thin air a roaring bloody dragon head and a soul-shaking dragon roar, and unleashed a fist-force storm packed with bloody energy. The volley shattered the incoming bows, arrows and magic energy, sending a large number of soldiers surrounding the front flying into the sky. The power of this punch even swept through the entire vanguard force again, knocking them off their feet again after they had just recovered. Dragon slaying tactics. Dragon roar. Bawang fist. With the power of one punch, he drove back thousands of troops and caused chaos among the vanguard army of tens of thousands of people. Monster. This guy is a monster. No legendary strong person can achieve this level. This is a strong person from the Holy Realm. Where did the holy warriors come from? Back off. Back off. The entire army is on alert. Hurry and inform the Duke that there is an attack by a strong man from the Holy Domain. Don't make meaningless sacrifices. Wait for the large forces from the rear to come over. Only by gathering enough high-level experts to take action together can we possibly compete with him. We can't stop him. Only the power of military formation can compete with the strong men of the Holy Domain. After the punch, Hegnev did not take any more shots, but shouted again, "Can you listen to me now?" As soon as he finished speaking, a steady voice sounded. "Your Excellency is very powerful. You are by no means an ordinary sanctuary warrior. I never expected that a high-level sanctuary warrior like you would appear in this small cornflower kingdom. What a surprise. I wonder if Your Excellency is blocking our army's path. What advice can you give me?" At some point, Duke Hongye and Bishop Remigius, surrounded by a group of elite soldiers, arrived at the forward area of the army. At this time, Remigius, who was dressed in red robes, came out and confronted Hegnev. Ask. Hegnev looked at him with great interest, feeling the majestic sea of holy light magic in his body. He had already guessed that he was a saint-level priest, and he also knew that these people were the leaders of this rebel army. Then he opened his mouth and declared loudly, "I am the chief warrior under Lord Victor Euronos, the regent of the Cornflower Kingdom, the captain of the personal guard, and the current general of the kingdom, Hegnev. Today, by the command of His Royal Highness the Regent, I am here to inform you and the traitors, ordering you to surrender as soon as possible and surrender to Queen Isariel immediately. If you repent in time, His Highness the Regent can still show mercy and spare you the pain of capital punishment, and treat you lightly. If you persist in your stubbornness, you will have no choice but to die when His Royal Highness the Regent's army arrives." After finishing the righteous command, the whole place fell into silence. After a while, Red Leaf Duke Chowser's face turned pale, as if he had been greatly insulted, and he yelled, "Asshole! That's too much. Good. You succeeded in irritating me. I want to see how he let me die." Seeing his reaction, Hegnev shrugged as expected and said nonchalantly, "I know you won't listen to good advice, so just think that I'm here to announce your defeat in advance." After saying that, the blood-colored dragon shadow appeared and wrapped around him, taking him into the air and about to leave through the air. However, at this moment, 24 pillars of holy light rose into the sky, reflecting each other to form a holy barrier, intercepting his figure. Oh, interesting, a legendary military formation. Hegnev, who was blocked in his way, not only did not panic, but also observed with interest. 24 gorgeous angels with white wings on their backs were seen flying into the sky at the same time, gradually closing the barrier and converging towards him. Cardinal Remigius on the ground also burst out with holy light, slowly floated into the air, and came to the same height as him. His eyes were cold and murderous and he said, "Since you are an enemy, I can't let you go. With such a powerful sanctuary-level combat power like you, it's impossible for your master to have a second person beside you, right? If we kill you here, we will have won half the battle. Don't blame me for being ruthless, but blame your leader for being too stupid and arrogant for giving us such a good opportunity. Finally, I would like to advise you, just surrender. Fall into God's arms so that you don't waste your strength. Resistance is meaningless. We are invincible at this moment." Following his words, the power gathered by the angels combined with his, erupting with earth-shattering energy and pressure. The combination of the two increased the power by more than 10 times. Hegnev was still watching with a smile, but after hearing his words, his face suddenly darkened, he suddenly became silent, and his aura began to become more and more terrifying. It's not because the other party is showing too much power at the moment and feels dangerous, but because of the strong anger. If I heard correctly, you seem to have said something that you shouldn't have said just now. With this level of power, you dare to insult my master. Well, let me show you what invincible power is. As soon as he finished speaking, invisible power burst out from Hegnev's body, breaking through the barrier of holy light in the blink of an eye, reaching heaven and earth. If the holy light when the small angel army formation was formed was the skyscraper pillar, then the invisible momentum now is the optimist pillar supporting the heaven and earth. The difference between the two is clear at a glance. Bishop Remigius's eyes widened at the sudden change, and he couldn't help but exclaimed. Just by relying on momentum, I broke the barrier blockade declared by the exclusive military formation, Shungshan. How is this possible? This is not a holy domain level power at all. The secret of dragon blood transformation. Break the 4-day barrier of the divine gate. In midair, Hegnev's appearance had changed drastically. The tall body is now covered with dark and thick dragon-shaped armor with dark patterns of dragon scales, looking extremely powerful and domineering. His long hair turned into a shawl, and he wore a dragon head-shaped helmet. At the same time, 2 pairs of sharp dragon horns grew on his forehead. One pair was straight toward the sky, and the other pair was curved backward, showing off his sharp edges. The 2 pairs of dragon wings behind him are as thick as shields and have strange shapes. The resolute lines look extremely sharp. The most important thing is that his eyes changed from black to dark golden vertical pupils, like a pair of dragon's eyes, adding an evil look to his tough face. I saw him walking through the air like a dragon-armored war god, walking towards Remigius step by step. Ignorance is not a capital crime, arrogance is the way to death. How dare you show your fangs even if you are a mere legendary military formation? I once used the disintegrating power of the holy sword to kill Favna, the lord of the evil dragon, bathed in the dragon's blood, and opened the 24 ways of dragon blood mad battle. I will teach you about this power today. Rejoice. Be proud. Those madmen who insulted our Lord, you will have the honor to see the peak power of dragon blood martial arts, and then go see your God with endless regrets. As if declaring that the other party was bound to die, Hegnev's momentum soared again, completely filling the world with endless magnificence and limitlessness. The surrounding space also began to crackle with crunching sounds, as if it could no longer bear the existence of this force. This is Hegnev's strongest posture. He killed the demigod evil dragon Favna, took his blood essence, and combined it with the essence of a lifetime of martial arts and the strongest bloodline of the martial immortal kingdom to achieve a dragon blood transformation at the sanctuary level. Mysterious dragon transformation. Looking at his appearance and momentum, Remigius felt a sense of crisis in his heart. At this moment, he finally thought of something and exclaimed. The power of the 12th level, the power of a demigod. Why can you break through the first divine gate so easily? This is impossible. Hegnev didn't know what the divine gate pass was, but he was still moved in his heart. Because just now, when he used the dragon god transformation for the first time in this world, he did hear the prompt from the voice of the world. Your power has reached the limit of the holy realm, and you are launching an impact on the boundary between gods and humans. You have broken the boundaries between gods and humans, and have broken through the first level of the 4 heavenly gates of the divine gate, the gate of divine enlightenment, and have temporarily reached the semi-god level. Based on your combat class, power nature, and personal factors, you gain the following divinity: 2 points of combat divinity, 1 point of strength divinity, 1 point of killing divinity, 1 point of mercy divinity, 1 point of heroic divinity, 1 point of righteous divinity, 1 point of bloodthirsty divinity, and 1 point of evil divinity. Please note, when you exit the current state and lose the power of demigods, divinity will enter a latent state, and you will not be able to receive the blessing of divine power. This was indeed beyond his expectation. After all, he didn't expect that using the dragon blood transformation ability for the first time in this world would bring about such a change. But it doesn't matter, he doesn't care about divinity or divine gates now, he just wants to use his fists to blast the group of birdmen in front of him. I saw that he no longer hesitated, raised his huge dragon fist, and punched out directly. The force of the punch shattered the space and swept towards the angel's army. Suffer death. The divine blessing of combat. Dragon slaying tactics. Dragon roar. Bawang fist. The power of one punch can destroy the sky and destroy the earth. Remigius's scalp was numb, and he could only mobilize all the magic power in his body in the angel army formation to try desperately to block. The holy heaven announces the fantasy world of heaven. The sacred power shines like the sun, presenting a spectacular and majestic sacred building complex in the sky, like heaven descending, which cannot be desecrated. It's a pity that under the power of shattered space's fist, this illusory world is really as powerless as a phantom. After a crisp sound that resounded throughout the world, the phantom of heaven was disillusioned and shattered. The fist force directly hit the basic defense layer of the military formation. It was blasted through again like a broken bamboo, killing the 24 archangels and Remigius, the host of the military formation. Scattered in all directions. One punch to break the formation. The power of this punch even exceeded Hegnev's expectations. He looked at the punch he had just punched and secretly marveled in his heart. This divinity seems to be quite useful. With a little more curiosity and eagerness in his heart, he raised his eyes and looked at the cardinal who had smashed to the ground and the scattered archangels, with a hint of joking and cruelty in his eyes. It's just right, let's use you to test the boxing. While muttering to himself, he raised his fist again. At this time, Wu Wei, who was leading the counter-rebellion army on a rapid march in the direction of Baifeng, suddenly heard a series of prompts from the Lord system. Your heroic unit, dragon-slaying god of war Hegnev breaks the boundary between gods and humans, breaks through the first level of the 4 heavenly gates of the Divine Gate, the Gate of Divine Enlightenment, and temporarily reaches the 12th level demigod realm. You have obtained advanced information about Shenmen Tiangwan, please check it carefully. Wu Wei was stunned at that time. What the hell? Didn't Hegnev go to inform the rebels and give him a blow to one of the rebels? After saying that, he came back. With his ability, the rebels couldn't stop him if he wanted to leave, right? Why did it suddenly break through? What the hell are you doing? Wu Wei looked confused at the moment. Fortunately, he was not confused for too long, because not long after, his 2 strongest thugs returned to him one after another and reported to him on the completion of the mission. There is no problem on John Hal's side. Prince Boar's unwillingness to surrender is something Wu Wei had already anticipated. However, he said that there might be support from other forces behind Prince Boar, which Wu Wei did not expect. Foreign envoy. Even Prince Boar respected him. There must be foreign forces involved. It seems that I am not the only one who has a crush on this country. Wu Wei touched his chin and muttered to himself, but secretly sneered in his heart. Unfortunately, I still came out on top. Those guys should be very angry now and regard me as a thorn in their side, right? I understand, I will pay attention next, you go down first. Yes, I'm taking my leave. After John Hal returned to the team, about 2 hours later, Hegnev also came back. It seemed that there was no change from before he left, but Wu Wei knew that he was different. As soon as he came back, Wu Wei immediately asked him about the situation. General Hegnev, did you encounter any accident when you went to Hong Yi's position to lead the rebels this time? Why did you even use the dragon god transformation? You also said that you broke the boundary between gods and humans and broke through the demigod level. Please tell me carefully what happened. Hegnev did not dare to neglect, and immediately told in detail everything that happened after he stopped the Hong Yi leader's rebel troops. Wu Wei frowned when he heard this, and thoughts kept flashing through his mind. There are also shadows of other forces behind the rebels in the Red Leaf territory. And it is basically certain that they are the forces of the Holy See. This is one of the most powerful forces in the Ain continent, with huge forces distributed in many realms. The power of the Holy See in the Morning Light territory is the overlord, and it seems to be on par with other human countries. This is a huge thing for Wu Wei and must not be underestimated. The Holy See can send a strong man from the Holy Realm and a total of 24 archangels to help Hong Ye lead the rebels. It must be that he wants to directly seize this country as a foothold and breakthrough point in the Kingdom Alliance. And it's a sure win. After all, this number of legendary arms can form a military formation, which has exceeded the upper limit of the country. Let alone seeking the country, it is no problem to destroy the country. It has not been exposed before, maybe because it does not want to attract the intervention of other countries in the Kingdom Alliance, and also wants to have someone behind it. If they had taken action from the beginning, the army of the Cornflower Kingdom would have been slaughtered long ago, and the Holy Domain Dragon Knight would not be able to stop the combination of the legendary army formation and the Holy Domain Bishop. After trying to understand the key points, Wu Wei suddenly felt that he was quite lucky. If the Holy See had not had so many scruples and had taken action earlier, it would have been impossible for him to gain the upper hand so smoothly. Thinking of this, he asked again, what happened next? Did you come back after breaking their military formation? Hegnev shook his head and replied, I had just obtained the power of divinity at that time, so I couldn't hold it back and tried a few more times. The Cardinal of the Holy See couldn't hold on and was punched to death by me. I thought I'd already killed them anyway, so I might as well kill those birdmen too. As he spoke, he also took out a cross pendant and handed it to Wu Wei. Lord, this is the Lord equipment I got from the Cardinal's corpse. It's not convenient for me to carry those angel corpses, so I ignored them. Wu Wei took the cross pendant and looked at it. It was actually silver legendary extraordinary Lord equipment. Holy heavens praise cross glow. Equipment type, jewelry, equipment level, extraordinary silver legend, equipment level, 50, will plus 10, intelligence plus 10, speed plus 10, mana plus 2000, command plus 50,000, leadership when the troops are members of the Holy See, the morale is increased by 30%. When the wearer has extraordinary power with sacred attributes, he can use the defensive war spell Holy Light Barrier once a day. The Lord equipment that comes with war spells is worthy of the silver heirloom level. However, Wu Wei is not short of Lord equipment, so he doesn't like it and plans to give it to Alexiel. After putting away the equipment, Wu Wei asked again, about you breaking through the demigod level and gaining divinity, what do you think? Hegnev thought for a while and expressed his thoughts. I didn't expect this to happen before, but now that I think about it, this world should have similar laws. Those who break the boundaries between gods and humans by their own strength will naturally receive divine rewards, even if this power is temporary. The divinity I obtained will not disappear. I can still vaguely feel that they are playing a subtle role in my body, and I have a hunch that when I can fully understand and master them when the time comes, I will be able to truly become a demigod without relying on the power of the dragon god transformation. I think this divinity is an opportunity to break through to the demigod level. It should be a rare thing, but there is insufficient information. I don't know how precious this thing is, but it doesn't seem to be difficult to get it. It shouldn't be something rare in the world. Wu Wei nodded, this was pretty much what he had guessed. But he actually knew more than Hegnev, because he had obtained relevant information not long ago. Therefore, he knows better than Hegnev himself how precious and rare divinity is. You are wrong, this divinity is a priceless treasure. Wu Wei has already learned a lot of relevant information about the realm of gods above the Holy Realm from the information transmitted to his brain from the Lord system. If you want to transform from a saint to a god, you must break the boundaries between gods and humans and pass 4 levels before you can shed your mortal body and become a true god. This is the 4 gates of Shenmen. The first level, the door of divine enlightenment. When the power a person controls has reached the limit of the world, and he can no longer move forward no matter what, a special substance that is not inferior to ordinary things is needed to become an opportunity to break the restrictions and allow people to enter a world. New realm, keep moving forward. Divinity is that special substance that can carry the power of the divine realm. The most important thing is that it can perfectly integrate with the soul of living beings. When the attributes match, it will never be repelled by the body. On the contrary, it can also be extremely powerful. Large growth area. This increase is also the principle that helps people break the boundaries between gods and humans. It is worth mentioning that most of the powerful demigods on the continent of Ain break through by absorbing at least one divinity that is consistent with their own elements after reaching the limit of in the Holy Realm, so as to break through the demigod realm. Only a few truly amazing and powerful people can use their own strength to break the boundaries between gods and humans, obtain rewards from the laws of the world, obtain tailor-made divinity that suits them, and steadily enter the realm of demigods. Such a strong person does not need to risk his or her life like other Holy Realm peaks to collect and snatch the divinity that suits him. Breakthrough may not be guaranteed, and his strength is not as good as the former, which is equivalent to taking a shortcut. However, trying to break the boundary between gods and humans by yourself is not only very difficult, but also risks losing your life. Once you fail, even if you don't die, your foundation will be damaged and your strength will increase. This is also too risky an act in the eyes of most powerful people in the Holy Realm, and they will basically not try it. There is no doubt that Hegnev is in the second situation, a truly amazing and talented person. Set especially after his breakthrough, he gained as many as 9 paths of divinity. In theory, he can create 9 demigods. It's no wonder that he thinks divinity is easy to obtain and doesn't take it seriously. Wu Wei felt that he had to correct his thinking so that when he met others in the future, he would think that he was in Versailles. Let's get back to the topic. There are 2 divine gates and heavenly gates in the demigod level. After breaking through the first gate of divine enlightenment, as the demigods continue to practice, their elements and soul characteristics will gradually transform into more divinity. Afterwards, until reaching the peak of demigods, a divine soul will be born in the divinity. Only by igniting the divine fire and burning one's own divinity can one start one's sublimation ceremony and condense one's soul in the realm of extinction. This is also a very dangerous act, and it is not an exaggeration to say that it will lead to a narrow escape. This is the second level, the door of the soul. After the soul breaks through the gate of the soul and completes its sublimation, the soul can carry higher conceptual powers such as faith, willpower, and cause and effect, and its strength will naturally reach the 13th level, the divine realm level. The divine soul has the quality of immortality, so those in the divine realm have the basic ability to live forever. At this time, if they want to take a step forward, they need to condense the soul as a carrier and sublimate the extraordinary core in the body into a godhead. This step is called the gate of divine source, because once the divine personality appears, it will continuously produce divine power. Divine power will slowly nourish the body, gradually building your body into a divine body. The trinity of divine soul, divine head, and divine body, when all 3 reach the perfect state, we will usher in the 4th level, the gate of the kingdom of God. The lower world of the Ain world cannot withstand the power of the true God's existence, so if you want to become a true God, you have to build and create your own small world to accommodate the souls of yourself and your believers. Its name is the kingdom of God. The eternal king who successfully created the kingdom of God, lifted up the throne of God, and escaped from the shackles of the world of Ain, and sat in the starry sky overlooking all living beings, is the real God. The true God himself can no longer return to the continent of Ain, but he conveys his will with his gaze and oracles, harvests faith, and herds all living beings. In Wu Wei's view, only by becoming a true God, even the lowest level of the newly promoted lower God who has not even obtained the priesthood, can he escape from the boundless chessboard of the world of Al-Ain and transform from a chess piece to a chess player. After learning this information, Wu Wei's ambition went to a new level and he set his long-term goal on becoming a god. Of course, this is all very far away, and he still has to plan and become stronger step by step. Even though he now has an ace in his hand that is almost equivalent to a demigod, he still cannot let down his guard. While he was still on the road, Wu Wei recorded the knowledge related to the realm of the gods, and then taught the 3 major powers to his subordinates. Alexiel, Hegnev, John Hal. They are all strong men at the pinnacle of the holy realm, and among Wu Wei's subordinates, they are the heroes most likely to break through to the demigod realm. Naturally, they must first have a sufficient understanding of the path ahead. 2 days later, Fang Wei's army finally arrived at Baifeng territory ahead of the 2 groups of rebels. Coincidentally, the remaining 100,000 kingdom troops also retreated here at about the same time. Before seeing the rebels, Wu Wei faced a new problem. What attitude and method should we use to get in touch with these last forces of the Cornflower Kingdom? No wonder Wu Wei was so entangled. Although in theory this royal army was a friendly force, the actual situation was not that simple. Anyone with a discerning eye knows what identity Wu Wei is playing now. An ambitious man of unknown origin who holds the emperor hostage to order the princes. Think of Dong Zhou in the Romance of the 3 Kingdoms. Wu Wei should be almost such a number 1 character in the eyes of the nobles of the kingdom. Even if Geralt Longhui, the leader of the Holy Dragon Knights, did not recognize himself as the regent and regarded himself as a shameless thief who opportunistically stole the country, Wu Wei would not be surprised at all, because he was. After thinking about it, Yi Wei came to a conclusion. Let's test their attitude first. As long as we see that they have the slightest dissatisfaction with me, then let them all die heroically in front of me and make tragic sacrifices under the iron heel of the rebels. Thinking of this, Wu Wei sighed and said with emotion, "Am I really too kind and too soft-hearted? I know it is a source of instability, but I still want to give them a chance. Logically speaking, I should get rid of them all quickly. I have obviously decided to be ruthless. Spicy, here comes the bad guy." After sighing, Wu Wei quickly called over Charles and John Hal and gave them instructions. The royal army has retreated to White Peak City. You should have seen it. Charles, you lead the team as an envoy to find their leader, Geralt, the Holy Sapphire Dragon Knight, to convey my command and let their entire army return to my command. Under the banner, we will obey orders uniformly. As he spoke, he added, in the name of the regent of my kingdom. Charles rolled his eyes and vaguely understood the meaning of his move, but just in case, he still asked, Sir, what do you mean? Wu Wei narrowed his eyes slightly. If they don't want it, you don't have to say anything, just come back. Charles immediately understood that this was a test, so he nodded and accepted the task. Wu Wei said to John Hal again, just in case, John Hal, you also go together to protect Zhang Er's safety. Yes, sir. Charles didn't have long to prepare, and soon he led a small group of knights and the holy swordsman John Hal, and swaggered to the gate of Baifeng City under the banner of Wu Wei. After the generals of the kingdom's army guarding the city heard about his intention, they immediately reported to their superiors. Not long after, the city gate opened and someone came out to greet him. And he's an acquaintance. Master Charles, long time no see. Charles didn't expect that there would be an acquaintance in the royal army. He was stunned for a while before he realized what he was doing and greeted him with the same smile. It turns out to be Commander Marcus. I really didn't expect to meet you here. Is this an arrangement of fate? That's right, the person who came to greet the envoy on behalf of the kingdom's army was none other than Marcus, the Red Copper Dragon Knight, the commander of the garrison whom he had met at the Quarry Castle on the border. During the war against the orcs at Keishi Castle, his subordinates and soldiers abandoned the defenders and fled on their own, creating excellent conditions for Wu Wei to conquer the defenders. Unexpectedly, he did not die in the royal capital, but came to Jela. Specials men do things. Thinking that Geralt was the leader of the Dragon Riders in this country after all, it was normal for Marcus to choose to join him instead of going to the royal capital. So Seal didn't ask any more questions and directly explained his purpose of coming and asked to see him. The request of Geralt, the commander of the royal army. Note, it's not a request, it's a requirement. Marcus didn't seem to hear the difference. Just like he did at Keishi Castle, he warmly welcomed them into the city and took them all the way to the temporary headquarters of the army, where they met the ignorant man who no one in the kingdom knew. Everyone knows the Holy Dragon Knight. At this time, Geralt was not wearing any armor. He actually looked like an artist and a civil servant. With his appearance in his 40s, those who didn't know would never mistake him for the powerful dragon rider in all countries. The leader got involved. After seeing Charles and others, he immediately came up to them with a smile on his face. Are these the envoys of Lord Regent Victor? Please take a seat first. On the surface, he was greeting Seal, who was leading the team, but most of his perception was placed on John Hal beside him. The two Saint Realm powerhouses looked at each other, and a thought flashed through their minds at the same time. He is a master. I checked their eyes and saw that they are people of the same level. Geralt. What a blazing aura. There is such a terrifying strong man from the sanctuary under the regent. 0. John Hal. Is he in the middle of the sanctuary? This guy didn't rely on the power of the dragon to reach the power of the sanctuary. It's interesting. The perception between the strong men in the sanctuary was not noticed by others. After everyone took their seats, Seal put on an arrogant expression and began his own test. Commander Geralt, I am here to convey to you the order of our Lord, His Highness the Regent Victor, requesting you to join the leadership of our army, so as to facilitate the integration of the kingdom's forces and unified command, in order to better fight against the rebellion in the country. Military. For the glory and peace of Cornflower, Commander Geralt, please transfer military power to our army as soon as possible to avoid delaying the military aircraft. After he finished speaking, the entire command center immediately fell silent. The smile on Marcus's face froze, and anger surged in his chest. He was about to reprimand loudly, but Geralt, whose smile remained unchanged, spoke first. No problem, I will ask people to open all the city gates now to welcome His Royal Highness the Regent's troops into the city. Please tell the envoy to His Highness Victor when they go back that I am willing to hand over all the military power in my hands. Even if I am willing to obey the orders of the troops, no ambiguity. All for the glory and peace of Bluebonnet. His attitude was extremely sincere, completely beyond CL's expectations, and he couldn't help but narrow his eyes. He really said that. In the camp of the counter-rebellion army, Wu Wei was a little surprised after listening to Charles's report. He was already mentally prepared to wipe out this remnant army, but the other party was actually so cooperative. This was really beyond his expectation. This Geralt is not simple. I just don't know if he is really smart, or if he is just trying to be brave with me. While Wu Wei was thinking about it, Charles asked aloud, "Sir, the gates of Baifeng City have been opened, and the royal army has even prepared a posture to greet them. What should we do now?" Wu Wei gritted his teeth, made a decision, waved his hand and said, "They are so cooperative, so what do we have to worry about? Pass my order, the army is about to start. We must catch up with enter the city before the two groups of rebels arrive at the trade wind grassland." Yes, the army started and slowly entered the city amid the welcome formation of the royal army. Wu Wei also met this legendary figure of the Cornflower Kingdom, and successfully obtained the military power of 100,000 kingdom troops from him. "Your Highness the Regent, thank you for your help from thousands of miles away. Although you are not from this country, you saved this country in times of crisis. As a member of the Cornflower Kingdom, I want to express my heartfelt thanks to you." On the top of the city of White Peak City, Geralt put on his light armor, stood with Wu Wei, and spoke to him with a sincere expression. Wu Wei really couldn't understand this person. If a person can endure to this extent without leaking any flaws, then even a coward can be regarded as a person, not to mention that he is also a legion commander with great military exploits in the Yellow Saint domain. He suddenly felt that this guy might be more troublesome than the two rebel leaders. At this time, he couldn't help but test. General Geralt won't think that I am an outsider and meddling in other people's business. Geralt asked in return, "Why would His Highness Victor think so? Hasn't Queen Isariel already made you the hereditary Duke of the kingdom? Now you are the Regent of Cornflower. You are so favored, Your Highness. Why should we continue to worry about our origins?" Wu Wei didn't speak anymore, because he already knew that his moral conduct seemed to be not as high as his, and he couldn't test anything with his words. If he continued to talk, he might ask him something. Seeing his silence, Geralt was wise enough to say nothing more. As smart as he is, since he has chosen to compromise for the sake of this country and the royal bloodline, he will naturally not touch Wu Wei's brow at this time. After all, Wu Wei is the one who really holds the power now. While they were silent, an urgent battle report came to Wu Wei. "Your Majesty the Regent, the armies of Prince Boar and Duke Hongye have been united and are now entering the trade wind grassland from the southeast and are about to approach the city." Wu Wei waved his hand and asked him to retreat, thinking in his mind. Duke Hongye has seen the explosive power of Hegenev's semi-god level, and after suffering such a big loss, he still dares to come. It is estimated that the Holy See must have done other tricks in the past 2 days. He joined forces with Prince Boar, probably to bully others into not knowing the existence of the powerful demigod, and to use him as a weapon. The size of the Holy See is there, you can't underestimate him, you have to guard against him. Thinking of this, Wu Wei glanced at Geralt next to him again, an idea flashed in his mind, and he suddenly had an idea. "It just so happens that I take this opportunity to give this guy a showdown and let him see what I rely on to control this country." Wu Wei had an inexplicable smile on his face, turned around and ordered to Seal beside him. "Go and ask Master Kolatov to take action and ask the 3rd, 4th and 5th mages to cooperate with his actions. Let's give a big gift to the guests who have come from afar." "Yes, I'll make arrangements right away." Charlotte was a little excited at the moment, but it's no wonder. As a mage, how could he not yearn for the power of the forbidden spell? Geralt on the side finally showed a surprised expression when he heard Wu Wei's order, and was secretly shocked in his heart. Master Kolatov is still alive, and still under his command. Did this old guy make the same choice as me? Outside the city gate of Baifeng territory, it was quickly filled with the re-emerging counter-rebellion army. The melee troops formed a tight multi-layered defense on the outermost periphery, while tens of thousands of mages were located on the innermost side, holding their staffs and waiting silently for something. Soon, the person they were waiting for appeared. Kolatov, holding his staff, slowly walked out of the city gate and walked step by step towards the center of the mage group. He was chanting the imperceptible ancient elf language, and with every step he took, the magic power in his body became more active, as if a volcano condensed with magic power was releasing its violent energy step by step. But when he finally arrived at the center of the mage group, a dense crowd of people emerged like a tide in the distance where the trade wind grassland met the sky. It was a coalition of more than 500,000 rebels rushing towards us. The old mage did not raise his head to look at them. He just stood in the center of the mage group and began to recite mysterious spells while slowly raising his staff. As the ceremony progressed, a huge and complex magic circle suddenly appeared at the feet of the entire mage group, exuding a gleaming brilliance. The magic circle unites the magic power of each mage, then releases it and integrates it into the magic circle. The elements and natural energy in the sky and the earth suddenly seemed to be inexplicably pulled, and gradually began to go berserk. In the blink of an eye, the sky was covered with dark clouds, and a storm arose on the grassland for no reason. The next moment, the magic circle on the ground had erupted with dazzling light, which was projected straight into the sky, forming a magic circle with the same pattern in the sky, but so huge that it enveloped the entire sky. Its appearance brought about a terrifying chain reaction. The wind between heaven and earth turned into a storm in an instant. There were dense thunders in the dark clouds, and thunder and electric snakes swam freely in the clouds. This feeling is like the end of the world. Only a vicissitudes of shouting could be heard from heaven and earth. Forbidden curse, the wrath of the sky. Time goes back to not long ago, when the coalition forces of Prince Bor and Duke Hongye just arrived at the trade wind grassland. When the army was on its way, a general came to Prince Bor and reported, "Sir, the Baifeng leader is ahead. The royal army has retreated to Baifeng City and is preparing to defend the city. Baifeng City has been occupied by Duke Bluestone's army before. All the food, grass and resources were plundered. The royal army's entry into the city was a dead end. Originally, we only had to surround Baifeng City and kill them without doing anything." But Prince Bor's heart was already filled with anxiety at this time. When he was most upset, when he heard his subordinate's words, he immediately shouted impatiently, "But what? If you have anything to say, just say it quickly. What are you talking about?" The subordinate quickly continued to report. However, according to the information detected by the scout team, the 55 counter-rebellion troops coming from the direction of the royal capital have also arrived at Baifeng territory and they have just entered the city. The two armies have probably merged. The opponent's troops are superior to ours, and they are in a position to defend the city. We are afraid that we will not get any benefits. It is better to be cautious first, set up camp on the edge of the trade wind grassland, and slowly compete with them. Anyway, we have a steady stream of food and grass support from various cities. They can't consume us no matter what. They will definitely not be able to hold on for long with the food and drink of the 650,000 strong army. His suggestion was quite pertinent, but unfortunately, it was rejected by Prince Bor angrily. "Are you teaching me to do things? What a waste. Time is so precious, who can afford to waste it? So what if there are too many people? So what if we defend the city? We have the support of the ace troops of the Kingdom of Azetalans, so what else do we have to be afraid of? Siege the city. The siege will begin tonight." Having said that, his heart was bleeding. In fact, he didn't want to be so reckless, but the master behind him couldn't wait any longer. Azetalanth's envoy has issued an ultimatum. He must defeat the kingdom's last resistance forces as soon as possible and seize the country to avoid too much time in the Orc Stormrage court completely occupying the southern border of the kingdom. At that time, the orcs may turn from plundering to occupying territory. If they see that this has become a new breakthrough point for attacking the Kingdom Alliance, things will be really bad. Maybe in the end they won't be able to control Cornflower, and the orcs will take advantage of them, expanding the front line with the orcs for nothing, and the gains outweigh the losses. In order to deal with the enemy as soon as possible, the envoy also promised to send out the ace troops of the Kingdom of Azetalans hidden in the army at the critical moment to help establish the victory. At this time, they no longer even care about their face and other allies' treatment of them. View. Even if there will be protests and boycotts from various countries in the future, that will happen in the future. Prince Bor, who understood all this, did not feel unhappy, because once the city was attacked, the loss would definitely be his own army, and at most the Red Leaf leader allies who temporarily joined in. Those arrogant Atalans people would only just came out at the last moment to seal the victory. What's so fun about being just used as cannon fodder for others? It's a pity that he has become a traitor and there is no possibility of turning back. Thinking of this, Prince Boar felt aggrieved and gave orders again and again, urging the troops to speed up the process. He wanted to rush directly to Baifeng City to start the siege. Not long after, another subordinate came to report. Sir, there is something strange happening in Baifeng City. There are probably close to 100,000 troops arrayed outside the city. They seem to want to attack us head-on. However, I don't think something is right. Should we be careful first and see what they are planning to do? Prince Boar refused without thinking. You are afraid of the enemy defending the city, but you are still afraid when they come out to fight you head-on. There is nothing to be afraid of, they just want to launch an attack on the grassland. Don't stop the troops, just press forward. My heavily armored knights have never been defeated in a frontal battle. Yes, when the subordinates saw that their boss was so confident, they stopped admonishing him and just went ahead and prepared to fight. However, not long after, a doomsday-like scene began to appear between heaven and earth. It wasn't until he saw the magic circle covering the entire sky that Prince Boar suddenly woke up. His face suddenly turned pale and his spine felt chilly. He never expected that, under the premise that Kolatov, the only holy mage in the kingdom, had passed away, there were actually holy mage who could use forbidden spells in the enemy army. At this moment, his troops were already too close. Quick, evacuate immediately, defend in place, hurry. At this time, he could only make his last effort to minimize losses. It's a pity that the more than 500,000 troops who are still rushing forward can't react so quickly. In a hurry, a terrifying blow has taken shape and is covering them. Forbidden curse, the wrath of the sky. After vicissitudes of roar that resounded throughout the world, the power of the forbidden curse was completely released. A giant tornado that reaches all over the sky, indiscriminately shooting down the dense thunder. Magical attacks comparable to natural disasters have huge coverage and wreak havoc in the coalition formation. Even the existences of the extraordinary level cannot last long in such a natural disaster, let alone ordinary soldiers. Thunder and storm swallowed up a massive amount of lives in an instant. The most terrifying thing is that this attack is actually continuous. At this moment, it is the end for the soldiers of the United Rebel Army. What a spectacular sight! Is this the power of the forbidden curse? It is indeed a natural disaster-level destructive power. On Baifeng City, Wu Wei looked at the thunderstorm that seemed to be right in front of him and couldn't help but sigh. Since the forbidden spell took effect, the amount of experience points and spiritual crystals in his Lord system interface has increased like crazy, and it has not stopped until now. It is conservatively estimated that if this forbidden curse continues, at least tens of thousands of the joint rebels will be killed on the spot, and the number of injured will be impossible to count. It can be called brutal. At this moment, he became extremely interested in the profession of a spellcaster who could use magic, and at the same time, the thoughts in his mind came to life. In the previous game, it seems that some of the big guys from the academy came out with powerful legal units by DIY, right? The authority to create troops next month will be used for that, right? Just when Wu Wei was distracted, another change occurred on the battlefield. A ray of holy light soared into the sky, spreading a huge phantom of wings in the sky. At the center of phantom wings is a sacred sanctuary, in which 100 archangels hold their swords high and sing hymns in unison. Exclusive military formation Shungshan War Song. The power of the legendary military formation was released, sheltering a large number of elite soldiers and generals from the Red Leaf Territory rebels under their wings, protecting them from the power of the forbidden curse. At the same time, a huge pale energy also appeared in Prince Boar's rebel army, covering 100,000 soldiers in series, and finally formed a large-scale military formation. In the sky above the military formation, an extremely majestic white lion looked up to the sky and let out a thunderous roar, directly shaking away a tornado that swept through. Within the range covered by the military formation, the magic power of the forbidden curse also cannot get close. Although there is no concern for the soldiers outside the military formation, it can at least ensure that these soldiers within the military formation can safely withstand the remaining power of the forbidden curse. In addition to the initial losses caused by being caught off guard and unable to react in time, once the two military formations were opened, at least half of the soldiers could be saved. As for the other half of the soldiers outside the military formation, they can only resign themselves to their fate. Just when the forbidden curse had taken away the lives of more than 100,000 rebels and slowly subsided, Geralt, who had seen everything on the top of the city, turned frighteningly dark. No matter how stupid he was, he could guess the truth of the rebellion. This made him so angry that he could no longer maintain his elegance and calmness. The White Lion of the Sky of the Knights of the White Lion. And the Archangel of the Holy See. Azatarans and the Holy See. It turns out they are the ones secretly pushing the rebellion in the kingdom. While he was angry, he also inevitably felt a bit of sadness and helplessness in his heart. When the country is weak, everyone wants to take a piece of the pie. Just when he was feeling sad and angry, he heard an angry shout from beside him. That's too much. Wu Wei had a righteous face, made an angry expression, and complained about the scene in front of him. The self-proclaimed Holy See, as well as the leader of the Alliance of Dignified Kingdoms, actually conspired to incite rebellion and disrupt the order of a country. This is simply too deceptive, and his heart is to be punished. This king has taken note of the hatred for destroying my family and country. Geralt, you continue acting. Wu Wei's current expression of indignation was of course staged, and he was actually feeling happy at the moment. He started with a forbidden spell and blasted out all the demons and monsters in the rebel army. He probably didn't even expect that the two rebels were acting together with his old enemy and rival, right? I really want to see their expressions now. If the two rebels can still remain united after today, it will be really dramatic. Thinking of something interesting, Wu Wei suppressed a smile, ignored the speechless look from Geralt next to him, and sternly ordered to the bodyguard beside him. Pass my order to the Night Watch Legion to leave the city and prepare to meet the enemy's formation. Yes. Then Wu Wei took out an exquisite potion bottle emitting a faint blue light from somewhere, threw it to Ram, the mate of the Angel of Sin, beside him, and said, "Bring this bottle of secret medicine to Master Kolatov and ask him not to stop the curse. Give it to the enemy once more, and give him the rest." Ram carefully caught the medicine bottle, glanced at it curiously, and then did not dare to neglect, and immediately jumped down from the top of the city. The extremely fast electric mage group's center Kolatata ran away from the mage. Title: Secret Potion. A personal consumable prop. The number of uses is 10 out of 10. After each use, it restores 100% of the drinker's magic power and 50% of the mana, and adds a 10-minute magic tide state. During the state, the magic power is every minute. Recovery is 2%. Mana recovery is 1 point per minute, and the cooling time is 1 hour. Geralt's eyes narrowed when he saw this scene, and he was shocked again. Use the forbidden curse again. Just rely on a bottle of potion. What level of magic recovery potion is needed to completely restore the magic power of a holy mage? This kind of precious treasure can already be called a strategic rare treasure, right? Who is this guy? Can he get such a treasure? Unknowingly, Geralt had once again raised his fear of Wu Wei to an extremely high level, even more so than the two masterminds behind the scenes, the Vatican and the Kingdom of Alantarans. Pay attention to. Theoretically speaking, Wu Wei's recording of Ma Wei has a very good effect. In the center of the mage group under the city, Kolatov wiped away his sweat and tried to hold on to the weakness in his body. He turned around with his staff, but before he could walk a few steps, he saw a tall, sweet-looking girl walking all the way. She ran quickly to him and handed him a bottle of blue magic potion with an innocent look on her face. Tilda Operator Mage Kolatov, the Lord asked me to give this to you. The Lord said that after you take a sip of the potion to restore your magic power, you can release the forbidden spell again. Quote. Kolatov Li Liao Zhao's old face was suddenly confused. He looked at the potion in front of him suspiciously and couldn't believe it at all. He wouldn't even let me drink a whole bottle. I am a mage from the Holy Realm. And is the forbidden curse so easy to release? The goddess of magic is on top. The goddess of elements is on top. The king of arcane magic is on top. Patrol. Can you, the blind, have some respect for the power of magic? Presiding over the forbidden curse ceremony is very tiring. Forget it, I'm under the roof, so I can't help complaining. At least you should cooperate and then decline politely. If the facts are in front of you, he can't blame me anymore. The old mage maintained an awkward but polite stiff smile, opened the bottle and took a sip. Then all the complaints turned into shock in an instant. This is, my magic power is all restored. What kind of potion is this? It's actually so effective. Kolatov looked at the potion bottle in his hand and realized what a treasure it was. At least in his thousands of years of experience, he had never seen a magic potion of this level. One mouthful can completely restore all the magic power of a holy mage, and it can also give him a magical feeling that all the magic power in his body is jumping for joy. Such a treasure is enough to compete with the holy water of life of the wood elves and the moonlight holy spring of the moon elves. Comparable to it, it would not be an exaggeration to say that it is a divine object. This regent of unknown origin is actually willing to take out such a treasure and use it. No, the point is, how could he have a treasure of this level? Is there really a huge force behind him supporting him to do these things? Ram didn't know what was going on in his heart. When he heard his exclamation, he thought he was asking her, so he smiled sweetly and replied proudly. The master didn't tell me the name and origin of this potion, but since it was brought out by the master, if he said it could restore your magic power, then it will be restored. In short, the master is never wrong. The master also said that the remaining potion will be given to you, master, as a reward for asking you to take action. Master Kolatov, hurry up and arrange a new forbidden curse ceremony. Please be sure not to live up to the master's gift. Kolatov looked at the girl deeply, and really began to consider the possibility of casting the forbidden spell for the second time. However, after careful consideration, he still shook his head and explained sincerely. To be honest, the casting of the forbidden curse actually needs to meet other conditions. Although my magic power has been restored, the magic power of the members of the mage group has been drained by the forbidden curse just now, and they can no longer meet another requirement. As for the conditions for releasing the forbidden curse, let's do this. When the magic power of the mages returns to a perfect state tomorrow, how about I come back to preside over the forbidden curse ceremony? Now Ram was confused, tilted his head and asked, the magic power of the mage group will be restored soon. Why wait until tomorrow? The old mage patiently explained to her. As a legal arm with destructive power on the battlefield that is close to that of 7th level extraordinary armies, mages' magic value is the only limit to check their strength. The magic power of mages is equivalent to a strategic weapon on the battlefield. It is usually used by the commander at the most critical moment and will not be easily consumed, because the magic power of each magician is limited and the recovery speed is very slow. Far from keeping up with the consumption, if you use all your strength to attack with magic, you will quickly run out of magic power and lose your ability to fight. Generally, if a mage who has exhausted his magic power engages in meditation to restore his magic power, it will take more than 12 hours to recover. Tomorrow is already the minimum deadline. Ram shook his head again, pointed behind him and said, no, they will recover really quickly. Kolatov frowned and turned back, only to see Charles appearing among the mages at some unknown time, holding a Legion-level magic recovery tool in one hand and squandering it wantonly to help the mages restore their magic value. The corners of the old mage's mouth suddenly twitched unnaturally. Said, at this moment, the holy mage who has lived for thousands of years experienced for the first time what it means to be inhumane. His eyes came to the battlefield that had just been ravaged by the thunderstorm. Countless corpses that were either twisted, blackened, or even smashed into shapes covered the battlefield, mixed with the severely injured undead, making the battlefield filled with tragic wails, like a hell on earth. In the midair, in the sacred illusory sanctuary, a cardinal, surrounded by 100 archangels, lowered his head and looked at the interior of the military formation that exuded dazzling light in another part of the battlefield. There was also a knight in white lion head armor who raised his head silently and met his gaze. The two commanders from the opposing sides looked at each other for a long time from a distance of several thousand meters, and they were also troubled by the current situation. They also didn't expect that the coalition forces around them were actually pawns of their sworn enemy, and that the other party actually had the same purpose as themselves. A sudden forbidden curse made them confused twice in a short period of time. Who can they ask to reason? Although the current goal is the same, to defeat the Cornflower Kingdom army in front of them, they are also sworn enemies beside them. Embarrassing. Embarrassing in capital letters. However, just as they hesitated, dark clouds gathered in the sky that had just cleared up again. The vision is coming again. The wind is blowing and the thunder is booming. What the hell? Still coming. What's going on with the royal army? Can the forbidden curse still be cast continuously? Seeing the light of a large magic array lighting up among the troops under the distant city wall, both sides became anxious. No one wants to suffer another forbidden curse. No matter how strong the military formation is, it cannot waste energy in vain. At this moment, the enemy is not even visible. In the end, the two commanders quickly exchanged glances and came to a common conclusion. Don't be held back by mutual hostility now. Kill the royal army together first, and then decide the outcome. The leaders of both sides are decisive people, and they immediately start taking action after making a decision. The Angel Army formation's movement speed is notoriously fast on the mainland. The giant wings swept away with the shelter formed by the angels and headed straight towards Baifeng City. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.